The appointed hour has arrived. I'd like to make the announcement. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, please make your presence known. I see none at this time. Thank you. May I ask the clerk for roll call?
Councilors Biedenbender.
Here.
Crocker.
Here.
Cullum.
Here.
Dagwan.
Here.
Flores.
Here.
Rapgrassetti.
Present.
Hebert.
Present.
Levesque.
Present.
Neary.
Here.
Schnepp.
Here.
Steinhilber. Tinsley. Wallace.
Here.
That is 12.
Quorum having been established, I'll open the meeting. Ask you to stand with me, pledge allegiance, and a moment of silence, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight, the October 18th meeting of the Town Council is in place, and I would ask if there is any council, I should say, any public comment. Please come in and sign up. If I could ask you keep your remarks to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening, Alan Feltham Hyannis, Chairman of the Barnstable Economic Development Commission. Tonight you're going to make a decision about the VEDC, and this week, for your reference, I mailed each of you a letter describing some of the activities, goals, and objectives that we have done over the past few years. I think as a group, we really look to the common good for economic development. We see it as much more than enhancement of retail stores, restaurants, tourist shops. When we have been working on economic development discussions, we have been thinking more in terms of higher tech businesses, think tank organizations, some research oriented organizations, things that will change to some extent the employment base and the wage level of the town of Barnstable, which I think everybody agrees we badly need. There's a lot of good opportunities out there, and to date, we really haven't been taking advantage of them. So all I'm asking tonight is that you discuss that thinking and that letter. I hope you've had a chance to read it, as opposed to just a quick yes or no vote. And with that, I will say thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Please come forward, sign in.
Good evening. My name is Grove Harris. This is my first time at a town council meeting. Thanks for having me. I came because I have some concerns about the project that's being considered now for Covell Beach of the electric wire coming into Hyannis at that point. So I understand there's going to be a presentation about that later in this meeting, and I'd like to be effective about offering some comments. So maybe I'll just offer some concerns now, but I'd also look forward to hearing that presentation. It's sort of a challenge to be learning about this project just through the newspapers, because it hasn't given me a full set of facts to look at and a full opportunity to weigh in. So it's frightening for people who live in the area. So for example, when we see that there's going to be construction happening for a long stretch up Strawberry Hill Road and up Finney's Lane, I don't get to know whether that's drilling for a Comcast type cable where it's a quick diversion, or whether that's 10 years world full of, intense construction. I looked at on the city's website and saw some of the considerations that are the provisions that are concerns that are being accounted for, and some of them look kind of serious, like when you go in to have an operation, you have to sign away in case anything might happen. But electricity and water are things that people generally have a really strong adverse reaction to, and appropriately. So if something really did go wrong, then I think that the citizenry in the nearby, the people who would be on that beach, have a really serious interest in learning about the facts of what's going on. I also know that in terms of public-private partnerships, there's a long tradition of those where the benefit ends up accruing to those who have invested in the business, and the costs get deferred to the public. So I'm a concerned town holder in that regard. I know that there's a significant financial incentive for the town, and I think that's fantastic. And I also think that having renewable energy is absolutely fantastic, and that we have to get with the program and go green, immediately. But I think we have to do it with eyes wide open, so I'm not sure where there's more public comment and more information. So I'm not trying to cast total aspersions on it, but really to say that we need a critical lens, and that $16 million, it's not a heck of a lot over 10 years. And if there's incredible profit made off of this, how is that going to benefit all of us? Because climate change is going to impact this town in a big way. So those who are benefiting from the transition to the green energy need to be part of addressing that entire picture. Like, I'm trying to say the whole picture has to shift now, that we're all in this together, and we just can't be having profit going to the few while the many are saying, wait a second, what just happened? That sounded like a lot of money, but now it doesn't look that way when we see the whole circumstances. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Please sign in.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Grammont. I live on Kilcourt Drive in Hyannis, and I concur 100% with the previous speaker. My main concern about the proposal is, what is it going to look like before we go ahead and commit to the $16 million, which looks good, and we all understand we do need some green energy, but what is it going to look like? How is it going to impact that major thoroughfare, which is Finney's Lane and Strawberry Hill Road? And one just has to look at what's going on 28 here in Bursar's Way, and whatever that obstruction or disruption is supposed to be like, and is it going to be similar to that, and how long is it going to go on? How long, who's going to be impacted? How long is it going to last? I would just also like to add that while the $80,000 is very nice to offer for a much needed bathhouse at Covell Beach, which is one of the few all resident or specifically residents beaches in the Barnstable area, it's interesting to see that other beaches in the Barnstable area get brand new bathhouses without having to undertake a large carrot like this. And I would just wonder why it has to come from an outside source as a carrot or as an incentive to go forward with this. Why does Covell have to wait forever for a new bathhouse compared to other parts of town? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. President, councilors. I just wanted to follow up on Alan Feltham's comments about the BEDC. And Alan has done a really fine job as our chair, trying to get us focused and productive. I was one of the original founders of the BEDC in 1983, and 35 years later, I stand before you with a heavy heart that the BEDC has, probably for the last several years anyway, I'll leave it at that, not been a very productive a group. And it's not because we haven't wanted to be, it's for several other reasons. We've had not a great opportunity to be involved in a lot of the events that have gone on through the town staff's involvement in economic I apologize. We just haven't had an opportunity to be involved in a lot of the events that have gone on that we think we should have been and would have liked to have been in terms of analysis and participation in making decisions as to whether or not we thought things were appropriate for a town or what would be better. And so we also have a difficult time, as many of you know, reaching quorum for our meetings, and it involves a fair amount of our staff's time, and so it's kind of a waste of their effort when we can't have a productive meeting, when we have guests that come and speak to us and we only have a handful of people there. I'm having difficulty defending the retention of the BEDC. I feel strongly that the town needs, as you know, to have a strong economic development promotion. I think this new committee that we have, that I had an opportunity to sit on tonight, is making great progress in zoning changes. Still has a way to go, but I think the input from the people and the hard work, especially of Councilor Crocker, has been terrific. These are the kind of things that help our economic development initiatives. So if the BEDC is to pass away tonight, my 35 years of involvement will not be wasted, although the last few have been disappointing. We did do a lot of things early on. I hope you have a way to replace the BEDC if that's what's going to happen, and do it in a fashion that involves a litany of complementary people who can do kind of the same sort of thing that this subcommittee of the council is doing right now with the zoning. So I don't have a recommendation. I just wanted to be honest, and I didn't want to pull the rug out from under Alan. I mean, he's done a wonderful job trying to help us, and he's tremendously dedicated to what we have done. So thank you for being with us for 35 years.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please sign in. While we have a moment, I would ask former Councilor Farnham if that was an antique horn that I heard on your antique car horn on that phone of yours. Yes, how did I guess? Thank you very much.
Oh, good evening. My name is Gordon Starr. I'm a resident of Barnstable. I came to talk in favor of the Vineyard Wind host agreement. I'd like to commend the town manager and his people for putting together a great proposal and working hard at it 2 or 3 days a week. I think this is an energy project that we need. It will increase our ability to use renewable energy, which we all know is necessary.
He's asking you to get a little closer to
Okay.
the mic or raise it to you. And I must also point out that we will be having the public hearing on these as well. So
Okay.
we could ask you to speak and stay and speak, or address it here. That's fine.
Okay.
You've begun. Thank you.
Okay. Any temporary disruption, I think, will just be temporary. They've spent a lot of time negotiating a contract, and it's a construction contract, and I think they've probably considered all of that. And I hope you vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'd close the public comment portion. Ask for councilors to respond to public comment who would like to be recognized. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Acting Mr. President, Vice President.
Geez, I got 2 raises
I understand
today.
that, yes. Thank you very much. First, to Alan Feltham's point, and also to Hank, it's a very serious thing to end the good work of any committee in this community. Sometimes we have to enliven a committee. Sometimes we have to try to look at, our productivity and where we might go with that. So in my research and study on this, it seems like it may be a time to look at a different kind of a format in order to move us forward in a positive direction. In no way is it any kind of a sign that we don't think that the committee was doing good work. The committee was meeting, it was working hard, it was communicating, it was reaching out, it was bringing in resources, all of which we greatly appreciate. But it is the leadership's thought that a very perhaps short-lived new committee with a very specific function would take place. So would not be my preference to close it, but, and again, great kudos and appreciation for your fine work, but I do hear both sides of this, so more to follow, but thank you on that. To Ms. Harris, and I'm sorry I didn't catch the name of the lady from Hillside Drive. There could be no improvement in our infrastructure without some inconvenience to us. I mean, the cable is going to go right in front of my house. And I'm willing to be inconvenienced because we have to look into our future. I'm going to use, Hank, I hope I'm not embarrassing you, but the sound of your phone there sounded like something out of Jurassic Park of two dinosaurs. And so it brings to mind there were two dinosaurs on the top of a little mountain, and water was all around it, and there were two palm trees left, and in the distance, they could see an ark, and in it they could see two elephants, and they could see two lions, and they could see two giraffes. And so one of the dinosaurs looked at the other one and said, "Oh, shucks, was that today?" They weren't on the ark. So that's, I guess, how I would see our situation, that we have to look at the future, and the future has to begin now. So there's no intent to inconvenience the public, but in order to improve our infrastructure, prepare for the future, help us with reducing our need for fossil fuels, this is a wonderful program. I cannot tell you enough how much they have reached out to us. They've answered all of our questions. They are as concerned about our environment and the impact on our community as we are ourselves. So I feel very confident as we move forward with them, and they continue. They've never shut us out. They've answered every question we've had. The management has done a terrific job, along with legal department, to protect all the interests of our town. So please bear with us with any inconvenience there. Thank you.
Any other councilors, please? Yes, Council Bean-Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Councilor Hebert, thank you very much for the dinosaurs. That was awesome. First, I just want to say to both Mr. Feldham and Mr. Farnham, thank you. Thank you for all the years, and especially to Mr. Farnham for your 35 years, the founding of the BEDC, and all those years of work. It's really quite commendable and inspiring, to be so dedicated for so long. So thank you. But as we've discussed as well in the past in relation to other committees that were up for this kind of a decision, that it's weighing the efficacy of the work that a committee is doing, whether or not it's those people that are volunteering their time to work on that committee are feeling like they're having their ideas heard, and they're feeling like they're having a positive impact. As we've discussed before, quorums are an issue, and I served on your committee for a brief few months, but I saw even back then, it was about a year or so ago, how tough it was sometimes to fill the table, and it was a lot of staff time. So I do think that the time is right to reconsider, but I do thank you both again for all of your hard work. To both Ms. Harris and I think Ms. Grayson, apologies if I'm incorrect. Thank you for coming forward and voicing your concerns about the project that's going to go on not only at Cobbles, but throughout the town. You are correct. We're at this age where we need to embrace renewable and make some drastic changes, and I think this project is a phenomenal project and opportunity for the town. I'm sorry that you feel that you've not been reached out to, or you feel like you have been, that people may have only been hearing about this in the papers. I will say this project has been before this council for many, many months, and it's been on the agenda numerous times. I can also speak to Vineyard Wind. Having reached out to me because Covels was a potential landing spot, they reached out to me because it's in my precinct at the very, very start of this whole discussion process. And I know that they worked not just with me, but with other councilors to reach out to constituents in the area. I know abutters were sent letters. There was a town hall meeting at the Barnstable High School. It's been on the Civic Association, at conversation at Civic as well, a couple of times. That said, I am more than happy to work with my fellow councilors and our town manager and Vineyard Wind to pull together an informational session if the public thinks that would be helpful. That way we can sort of put it out there again. Now that it seems to people that it's much more of a reality, I think perhaps that might be a way to go. So thank you all, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Any other councilors? Hearing none, I'll close the councilor response to public comment. I would like to deviate a little bit from the agenda, if I may. I think we have a very important election cycle coming up, and we're fortunate enough to have a clerk, our town clerk, with us tonight, so I would ask that she has a chance to give us all some indication about all the voting possibilities, or I would almost want to call it the matrix at this point. But thank you very much, and thank your staff for us. But please go ahead, if I may, Ann.
Thank you, Vice President Crocker. Let's see, starting on Monday, the 22nd of October, early voting will be happening in the town clerk's office, starting at 8:30 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. On Tuesday night, we will stay open till 8 p.m. And then on Saturday, we'll be open from 8 a.m. to noon. Followed by the following Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, again in the town clerk's office, and on Tuesday evenings until 8 p.m. Now, the reason it's going to be held in the town clerk's office is to hopefully keep the amount of times that we have to handle all of these ballots down to a minimum. And we have 4 voter registration information systems computers in the town clerk's office. So as the people come in and they request their ballot for early voting, we're literally going to go into the computer and enter the information then. We will have booths set up in the hallway. The DPW is taking care of that for us, so that there'll be plenty of booths set up. We will have the AutoMark handicapped ballot marking computer up and running, and all of the ballots will have to go into envelopes. The voter has to fill out the envelope, seal their ballot inside of it, and then we will have it staying in my vault until Election Day. We have currently, since the 1st of October, we've handled and processed 972 absentee ballot applications at this point. That's overseas and everywhere in the United States. They're going everywhere. So we have processed all of those. We're still waiting for a lot of them to come back, and we will continue to do that through the Monday before the election. So absentee balloting can be done until Monday the 5th at noontime. At noon, the town clerk's office has to close. We have to prepare for the election the next day. So we'll have all of the absentee ballots to go through and make sure everything is marked correctly on all of the voter lists. We have to get the voter list prepared to go out to the precinct the next morning And we start that process at 4:30 in the morning to get everything out to the precincts. So we will be closing at noon. And the early voting will end on Friday the 2nd at 4:30. So it's kind of a balancing act.
Well, please extend our thank you. All of us as councilors understand the need for the process to be complete, thorough, and certainly come with a high degree of scrutiny. And we're very grateful for all the new twists and turns that have come to your office and the way you and your staff are handling it. Thank you very much. Who's my speaker for, yes? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was wondering if Ann, the clerk, might be able to remind that there are two or three new voting places. Thanks.
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. We currently have a new area for Precinct 1. It is the Zion Union Church at 805 Addicks Lane in Hyannis. It proved to be a wonderful voting location. I got many excellent comments about parking and the ease of it. So I'm really thrilled with that. And the other new location is for 10 and 12, and it is at the Seventh-day Adventist Church that has a huge community building. And they have a lot of parking. They are handicapped accessible. All of that. The wonderful thing, and I've asked the police department again to help us out on this, is to have a sign, one of those electronic signs, on the side of the road, so it slows the traffic down with arrows pointing to the church so they'll see that it's there. We have signage there, but when you're driving by, it's harder to see it, so we're going to have that. We will also have a police officer for the whole day outside to help get the traffic in and out of that street. So I think that's going to work really well. I didn't have any complaints except for the weight of the door. So we'll have somebody standing there opening the door too. Okay.
If I may continue with that thought, could you remind us what you've done to give notice, proper notice to all the voters of the change?
Sure. We did a mailing to everyone. A postcard mailing went out. I think it was 45 days before the election. It's been in the newspaper on numerous occasions. It's been in the Barnstable Patriot and the Cape Cod Times. It's been on Channel 18. I've spoken about it several times to anyone who wants to listen. I'm ready to tell them.
And in the past, we've sometimes posted someone at the old location to inform. Is that a practice you'll be exercising?
Yes, there will be someone at each location, at the BWB school and at the BUE school, the Barnstable United, to redirect folks to the proper locations.
Thank you, and thank you for the question, Councilor Schnapp. I would ask at this time for our town manager, Mark Ells, to come forward for town manager communications.
Good evening, Mark Ells, town manager. If I might, just to respond to a question that came up during public comment before I begin, relative to the Covels Beach bathhouse, we actually have a process in place in town called our Capital Improvement Program, and we're looking out at all of our facilities across our community. One category within that are our beaches and our bathhouses and the parking lots and any other aspects that may be associated with those facilities. The Covels Beach bathhouse and parking lot was in the 5-year CIP. We're looking over a 10-year period at a $250 million capital improvement program with literally hundreds of different projects that we are balancing the available resources, the priority use, with need. And so we were looking at Covels Beach within the next 5 years. Had nothing to do with this project. It was in the queue. It was going to come up. This project came along, so we pulled out the CIP and said, okay, we've got X amount on the building, we've got X amount on the parking lot. Part of the rehabilitation of the parking lot, if the landing occurs there, will be to restore the site and to repave the parking lot. We asked them for the capital amount for the building. So the two weren't related, we made them. Town of Barnstable made them related when that opportunity presented itself. Just for clarification. Town manager update for the period of October 5th through October 18th. We are proceeding with the tasks in the budget action calendar for FY 2020 as scheduled. We're planning a calendar year permit and fee hearing on November 8th at 10 a.m. Originally, we were talking about a week later, but we had a conflict. We hold the hearings in this room, so we moved it to November 8th at 10 a.m. The school superintendent and I have agreed to continue with the 60-40 revenue sharing agreement with an understanding that the first $1 million in new property tax growth will be dedicated to funding the operating budget, and any amount above that level will be dedicated to the capital improvement program that we have. And it varies. New growth varies year to year, but I think you've had a couple of presentations now by the finance director that basically looks at existing budget plus at least $1 million in new growth is what we're looking at to remain on a level service. And it's our feeling that we do have an extensive capital program and that we need to be contributing our new dollars, or at least a portion of our new dollars, to that capital program. We continue working with the Mass Department of Fish and Wildlife, USGS, Department of Water Supply staff regarding future potential water supply wells proposed on the 250-acre parcel northeast of the Hyannis water system. USGS has completed preliminary modeling runs in the Hyannis Ponds complex. Water sampling has been completed in the test wells on the Fish and Wildlife land. Both modeling runs and water quality testing has yielded positive results. We are moving into the next phase of discussion on siting wells, future potential water supply wells on the Fish and Wildlife property. We anticipate another working group meeting in November, and we'll keep you advised as this progresses. Concurrent with our discussions with Fish and Wildlife, we have prepared a new source alternative evaluations report in our efforts to maintain existing and provide future water supply in the Hyannis water system. The Fish and Wildlife parcel is identified as one of the several viable sites in close proximity to the Hyannis water system. Another site identified in the report in which we plan to proceed with preliminary investigation is the county farm site. As part of the town's settling its dispute with the county regarding PFAS contamination of the Mary Dunn wells, the town secured an access agreement from the county to perform exploratory investigation of the county farm for future potential water supply wells. We also plan to commence a broader discussion of public water supply wells and the need to update the delineations of zone to contribution to public water supply wells as future potential water supplies are identified. We'll keep you advised of our progress as we move forward with this important effort. Just for the viewing public, if you're wondering why I'm only talking about the Hyannis water system, our other water purveyors in town are districts in the town. So when we look at master planning for water supply in the town of Barnstable, our municipal government is doing the planning in the Hyannis water system. The districts are doing the planning in the other areas of town, like Barnstable and in COMM and in Cotuit. And West Barnstable, though I think they have an identified area for future potential water supply, they don't have a water district. Not with a public water supply. I met with Commissioner Kukunis regarding the status of the Barnstable County Fire Training Academy. We agreed to meet until we reach a unified position regarding matters concerning the facility. The immediate concern is regarding water usage in fire response exercises on site. We will continue to work with the county and the Department of Environmental Protection to ensure protection of our downgradient water supply. I received a scope of work from Town Councilor Hebert regarding a proposal from a consultant to the county to review the extraction well downgradient of the Fire Training Academy in an effort to identify efficiencies they might gain by going through this evaluation. And I've inquired to the county administrator as to the status. Where are you? Oh, there you are. I'm used to looking over there for you. So I've reached out to the county administrator, and I expect he'll get back to me shortly on that. And we have an ongoing dialogue with Commissioner Kukunis and with Administrator units. So I expect that we will stay on top of this and we will work this out. And in keeping with that discussion, following the July 17, 2018 Town Council meeting, at which the county administrators provided an update on the Fire Training Academy, Assistant Town Manager Andy Clyburn requested permission to facilitate a discussion between the county and the Joint Base Cape Cod officials on the potential for locating a new FTA, Fire Training Academy, FTA facility on Joint Base Cape Cod. The Assistant Town Manager felt as though the Fire Training Academy initiative was in alignment with the Joint Base Cape Cod plans to create a premier law enforcement and first responder training venue capitalizing on the synergies of military training. At a minimum, our goal was to put the Joint Base Cape Cod in the minds of the county officials as one viable alternative as they began their alternatives analysis, meaning to look at future use at the Fire Training Academy. As most of you know, Andy was Coast Guard Base Commander on Joint Base Cape Cod prior to retiring and joining our staff here in Barnstable. I agreed with Andy and gave him authorization to proceed with the introduction and told him to feel free to assist the county in any way that he could. Andy was successful in getting Joint Base Cape Cod officials engaged in the issue. He worked with Joint Base Cape Cod leadership to get a high-level briefing with Brigadier General Foe, Joint Base Cape Cod Executive Director, and the county on August 30th, 2018. The briefing was extremely well received. Everything presented by the county was in line with the Joint Base Cape Cod vision, and the General was extremely enthusiastic to continue discussions. It seemed as though Joint Base Cape Cod was most definitely a viable alternative to be considered. Subsequently, the Fire Training Academy initiative was briefed to the base commander on September 6, 2018, Joint Oversight Group meeting, where it was again very well received, and plans were made to move into more detailed discussions at the staff levels with facility engineer and environmental staff. Those meaningful discussions are now underway. They are meeting next on October 30th to move the initiative forward. Assistant Town Manager Clyburn will continue to attend and offer any assistance he can, with the understanding that it is a county initiative and up to the county and the Joint Base Cape Cod to move the project forward. So it's opened a door to us that we did not have in the past. Excellent opportunity. I don't have to say number 6. You've already covered it. Thank you. You did a better job. I didn't have the Saturday in here, so thank goodness you did it in. The Barnstable Youth Commission and the Barnstable Police Department Community Impact Unit are hosting a community substance abuse forum on October 21st, 6:30 at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center to provide information on youth substance abuse. I've put the flyer as an attachment to my report. The forum will include PowerPoint presentation, panel presentations, audience discussion, and resource tables. All are invited to attend. Please refer friends with teenage children to the event. Multiple agencies from various disciplines will be represented to offer support and services. I met with Christy Senatori The recently appointed executive director, she had been there functioning as interim, but now she's permanent, executive director of the Cape Cod Commission, to discuss the commission's efforts to update their regional policy plan. They commenced this effort in September of 2018 and plan to submit to the Assembly of Delegates a final version of this by December of this year. I've attached an informational summary provided by the commission. Ms. Senatori offered to appear before Town Council in the near future to provide an overview and answer questions, and I'll make a recommendation to leadership. Perhaps the night that the planning board is here as well might be a good night for her to come and do a presentation to both Town Council and planning board on this important effort. And as you can imagine, it's followed by, when the regional policy plan gets updated, the local comprehensive plan gets updated if there are changes. So we will be as well undertaking an effort post the completion of that. On October 23rd, I plan to meet with the Board of Health to provide a comprehensive water management plan update and further discuss the proposal to eliminate or modify Chapter 360 Protection of Saltwater Estuaries interim regulation, and we'll keep you advised of our progress on this matter. The Town of Barnstable Public Health Division is pleased to announce there are 2 remaining influenza vaccine clinics open to Barnstable residents. One on November 7th between 3 and 5 at St. George's Greek Orthodox Church in Centerville. The next on December 6th from 10 a.m. till noon at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center in Hyannis. Drive-through service will be available at St. George's Church. Consent forms will be available at the Public Health Division, at the Senior Center, and on-site at each clinic. The fee is $3. In our continued efforts to fulfill the goals of the Town Council strategic plan, we have developed an action plan to initiate, implement, and deliver specific objectives associated with the Town Council strategic plan. The specific request, this specific request is to create an ad hoc committee to work with and advise staff and ultimately report back to Town Council on stated objectives in the area of economic development. The initial objective will focus on improving opportunities to do business in Barnstable. This is an ad hoc committee appointed by the Town Council President. I have had inquiries. I have directed all inquiries to the Town Council President. I have reached out to various representatives from multiple disciplines, it's interesting. The common discussion has been relevant to, they want to know the number of meetings, when they'll meet, the specific objective, so it's an in and an out, and they'll provide their expertise. I think this can be a very effective method with clearly stated objectives, with a time frame, and to come back to you with a deliverable at the end of that process. And then if there's another one, perhaps some or all or none continue, and we think about the next objective and who we're going to engage, and I think it can be an effective tool. But it was very important to them that they needed to know the time commitment and the specific objective. So that's something that, and I would completely agree with that. The Planning and Development Department has developed a startup guide to better assist businesses opening a restaurant in Barnstable. This is an area, when we had looked at it, we have many restaurants. This is a frequent question. I've attached the brochure in the guide, and it'll be posted on our website. So it's just another effort to help people that are coming into that particular area of business work through what can be a confusing process, especially if somebody hasn't done it here in Barnstable in the past. That's a result of feedback that we've received from our business people. And finally, the Barnstable Municipal Airport's request for proposal for the Kmart Plaza was opened on October 12th. The proposals have been taken under advisement and review. The Assistant Town Manager, Andy Clyburn, will provide an update, and that concludes my Town Manager update.
Any questions of the Town Manager before we go into the Kmart, please? Yes, Councilor Biedenbender.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, Mark. Question regarding the RFPs in the Kmart Plaza, and I apologize if this is a really naive question.
Councilor Biedenbender, May I ask? We're going to bring Andy up as soon as he's done to address that, and then we'll follow up with some questions.
Oh, okay,
Would that be
sure.
an appropriate
Yep,
time?
of course.
Yes. Councilor Ferraz?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'm curious, Mark, first I want to commend Assistant Town Manager Andy Clyburn and yourself for reaching out to the Joint Base to see if in fact we can move that fire academy to that particular location. I realize that ultimately it will be a county decision, but from a town perspective, we all know what occurred over the past couple of years relative to the impact on the Hyannis water system. So I would hope that as we move this forward, that really does come to fruition. And based on what you have seen so far in terms of discussion and debate, is there any kind of a timetable that we're looking at? Do we see a potential successful event this will actually occur?
No, there's no timetable definitively this time. I would say that I've been surprised how quickly the discussions have moved forward. The General and Joint Base Cape Cod have a definitive vision of having a first responder training venue there, and they had already engaged federal and state partners in that endeavor. So the timing was right for this, and I'm optimistic. Jack Units has been fantastic, he and his team, in engaging, and it's gone fairly quickly through this step. So I don't think any land acquisition, we don't even know at this point if this is the preferred alternative. You know, if it ends up being a land acquisition or a land transfer to the county from the state, or if they become a tenant. But Joint Base Cape Cod is very interested in furthering the discussion, so I think it's very optimistic.
Well, I applaud the effort and the energy, and I would strongly encourage that the debate and the discussion obviously continue, because one of our primary responsibilities as the town council as a whole is to make sure that we protect the environmental impact of any kind of PFOs or PFAs that have impacted that Mary Dunwell site. And even though, sometimes we think of ourselves representing particular precincts, this is a town-wide issue. Water is our most precious resource. We live on a number of different aquifers that sort of flow into each other, so it's critical that we protect that, because if we lose water quality on Cape Cod, we're doomed.
Yes, sir.
Councilor Cullum? Back to the manager's question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the date on the Substance Abuse Prevention Forum. I have it in my calendar on the 24th. I think you said the 21st, but we just got the full packet up here. So just so everyone knows, it's October 24th at 6:30 at the HYCC. That's the Community Substance.
24th.
Yeah, the
24th, 6:30.
I thought you said the 21st. I just wanted to make sure I had it right. Thank you.
Councilor Rapkassetti?
Yes, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, Mark, for the report. Can you give us an update on the bid opening on the Katuitt dredge and the time when it's going to proceed?
Looking for Director Santos here. There he is. Come on up, Dan.
Just when you thought you could hide, huh? How are you, Dan?
Good.
Thank you
Dan
for joining.
Santos, Director of Public Works. We had a bid opening today. We had two bids. One of the bids is below our budget figure, which we were very happy to hear. The other one is higher than the cost of the entire dredge. So we're unlikely to go there. So we're checking the references and going ahead with that. And if that all works out, then we'll make that award. And so we anticipate starting dredging somewhere around the beginning of November.
Thank you, Dan. Any other questions of the
Can I just
manager's
say-
report first? Yes.
I'm sorry, I just
Counselor
wanted to
Cullen?
say, sorry, I didn't realize my mic was on. I'm yammering on here. I just wanted to say this is an awesome flyer, because it just landed in front of us right now, and having owned a pseudo restaurant, or it completely consumes you, and it's hard to navigate, and this is like, it makes a flow chart out of it. It's a nice piece of work, so thank you for that. That will be helpful for
I'll
people.
let Elizabeth and Mike know that.
I hope they're handing it out to all the commercial brokers out there, and that everybody knows that that would be a good way to start,
Great.
Thank you.
Councilor Hebert?
Kind of a follow-up on that. In talking about our current economic development team, and you talked about the ad hoc committee to create some extra energy, would that be in addition to continuing our commission or not? Would you see a value with the ad hoc committee and continuing with our existing commission, is there value to doing that as you see it right now? I know it's, so when you talk with great
Well, I think,
enthusiasm-
in general, our mission is to maintain quality of life here in Barnstable and maintaining a fundamental, and in doing that, maintaining a sound financial, engage the public, recognize our resident business visitor. And so certainly engaging the public, part of that is creating committees. And we have two types of committees. We have those that are delegated authority by state and us, and then we have advisory. For what I'm tasked with, I think the best way to do it was with specific objectives, stated objectives, timeframes, and engage committee members, ad hoc or other, toward that end, and be clear that there are always clear objectives that fall in line with our mission statement and those priorities, goals, strategies that we have within it. And if we can't articulate those, that's problematic in having an advisory committee. So I've recommended on the specific issue that I brought before you that we engage people from a diverse area that are in business in Barnstable to give us their perspective so that we can answer that or address that particular objective. So I think that the ad hoc approach for that particular objective is good. I think there are other situations where an advisory committee can be very effective, especially where there are standing, reoccurring objectives like the Hyannis Water Board and reviewing the rate study and reviewing how we manage the assets that they hold and reviewing the contracting there. I mean, we have annually stated objectives that are very clear, and they hold with those on a regular basis. So.
Thank you. We have a nice problem here in that we're a developing community, we're open for business, we try to attract business, we have a lot of tourism. I don't know if you heard the radio report today about Nebraska. It's the least visited state in the union, and they finally came up with their slogan is, Nebraska is not for everyone. And so I think we're way ahead of that one. Thank you.
It's going to be a source of humor.
Councilor Snap, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You're a hard act to follow, Councilor Hebert. But I do have a follow-up question to your question. The ad hoc committee, is that at all related to the task forces that were presented in a October memo between you and, there's some SWAT task force that are also, it looks like.
Yeah, well, my approach to managing is based on the strategic plan and the goals that we establish as a community, that we set objectives. They're measurable, achievable, specific, and that's how we gauge our success or our failure, and then we modify based on what we learn from that process. It's a control mechanism. So that's how I approach it. So 3 objectives were that memo that I provided you, things that I would like to see us go forward with in a particular area, in this case, economic development. But we are establishing these in every area that we're tasked with. Because otherwise, you never really know if you're progressing toward those things you're trying to achieve. So in some cases, we'll use a mix of different approaches, to engage the public to be involved in this.
So the ad hoc committee is something separate from these task forces? That's the only,
I think that
because it sounds like it has a similar objective to one of the task forces, that's
No, that first one is what I'm talking
great.
about
That's
here.
what I thought.
Yes.
It's just a different name.
Right, there's 2 more that I want to figure out whether we use these same people or going to bring in different people. Okay?
Any other questions for our manager's portion of the reports? Okay, Mott, and Councilor Beden-Bender has the first questions after you speak. Thank you.
Thanks. Andy Clyburn, Assistant Town Manager. Wanted to take this opportunity to give you a quick update on the long-term lease of Cape Town Plaza, also known as Kmart Plaza. The 26-acre town-owned parcel under the custody and control of the Barnstable Airport Commission, located in our region's commercial center, was leased and commercially developed in 1968, and in anticipation of the 2024 expiration of the long-term lease, a request for development proposals was issued on April 26, 2018. Last Friday, October 12th, at the Barnstable Town Hall, 2 proposals were received, opened, and the names of the firms submitting proposals were publicly read aloud under the town's chief procurement officer direction. This was done in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30B, Section 16, which governs how municipalities sell, lease, or acquire real property. The first proposal received is a collaborative submission from the Wilder Companies, Ltd. And O'Connor Capital Partners. The second proposal is from WS Development Associates. An evaluation committee will evaluate the proposals considering all of the requirements and evaluation criteria included in the request for proposals. The goal for the property includes maximizing the site's potential with a development that contributes to the economic vibrancy of the 132 corridor, meets market demands and the needs of the town and the region, and to encourage redevelopment that is complementary and compatible with surrounding land uses, including the Barnstable Municipal Airport. The committee will be asked to balance how the proposals meet these goals and evaluate the proposed financial packages in making a recommendation to the Airport Commission and the Town Council for potential entry into a long-term lease for the property. I'd like to thank everyone that's been involved, Katie Service, her predecessor Bud Brielt, a number of our staff, Ruth Weil, Elizabeth Jenkins, David Anthony have spent a tremendous amount of time and effort moving this forward over the past year. And special thanks to all the counselors really for driving it, particularly the leadership. The president and vice president asked me weekly, if not daily, how things were going. And in particular, Vice President Crocker was personally involved in many of the meetings that took place to get that RFP put out, and I think we're on the cusp of getting this done, getting a long-term lease in place to generate the revenue for the airport and set the tone for a very important economic portion there on the 132 corridor. I am not a fan of making any promises to deliver anything in the months of November or December, but I am cautiously optimistic that we will be bringing forward our recommendation by the end of this calendar year. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Terrific. Yes, Councilor Beanbender, you're up. You all set? Oh, terrific.
good.
Terrific. Anyone else? Well, then it makes it my turn. I gotta tell you, you earned your Wrangler W's pulling this one off, so thank you very much for your effort. I remember when Andy and I went to the first meetings and they said, lease the lease, no way. So everybody said no way, and here we are today with a real resolve. The effort that Andy has recognized is that when you go through a development clause like this, which you may hit is a very difficult part of the road for developments. People generally, when they get to the end of a lease, turn the keys over and walk away. And what Andy recognizes that would bring blight to a major mall in our major corridor. And so he undertook the task of working with all the people involved to ensure that we had a chance to bring forward something that a developer would find attractive and could ease through the process. And we may see a seamless turnover of the 2 timeframes. So again, I have to thank you. We have a great deal of work still left in committee, but great kudos. Thank you.
Sir.
Okay, I would look to Councilor Jessica Rapp-Grassetti, please. Could I have some movement on the minutes of October 4th?
Yes, Mr. Vice President, I'd make a motion that we accept the Town Council meeting minutes of October 4th, 2018 as presented.
Second. I have a first and a second. Any discussion on the minutes, please? Yes, Councilor Neary.
Yes, Mr. President. I'm sorry, Vice President Crocker.
Okay.
We just have a slight Scribner's error under public comment. Mary Ann Barboza has been before us a couple times. I think she was looking to say she felt that inactivating voters for not completing their census was wrong. Okay, so with that Scribner's error corrected.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, are you all set with that? Okay, we now have the minutes as amended. All those in favor, please? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention, please. Thank you. Please record the abstention. We're coming to the portion of our meeting where we have a chance to meet our town manager again for a discussion on the comprehensive water management plan. I'll come back to that. He's under communications.
Good evening. Okay.
Yeah.
Should
Don't
I
take
wait?
it personal.
They can watch it on reruns, right? Thank you, Mark Ellis, Town Manager. I'm here to give an update on our comprehensive water management planning. I know I've been doing this regularly for about a year now. I'm hoping very shortly I'll continue to give brief updates, and I know our Public Works Department, who's done an excellent job in organizing many of the pieces of this, will continue to discuss both this issue with you, and I know they've been active. I think they were just in the Mills recently giving updates on this. So they're out there regularly talking with our community about, you know, what might be one of the most important issues we have in achieving you know, our mission and our purpose as a municipal government, which was keeping balance between, you know, what our residents and visitors and businesses do here in the town of Barnstable with those things that are of great importance to us, and in this case, it's our natural resources. This map, I think, really frames up what I've been talking with our Department of Public Works and our senior staff about, which is the complexity of what we're challenged with here in Barnstable. As you all know, Barnstable is a very sensitive environment. We've got 2 coastlines. We stand on top of the water that we drink. We stand on top of sand, which, for the most part, there's some clay and there's some boulders out there, but for the most part, we stand on top of sand. So we have to be mindful always of what we do here in Barnstable. The light brown areas are the area where our drinking water comes from. The bold outlined areas are the 5 major embayments within our community that contribute water to our coastal embayments, but there are also pond complexes within those areas that are impacted, the same as our groundwater and our drinking water, with what we do here in our land use, in living here, in standing on the ground, within which our water you know, falls, moves, is withdrawn, enters our lakes, ponds, bays. So it's a very complex issue. And on top of our just general land use, our business and our you know, residential and recreational use, we have facilities like a water pollution control facility in Hyannis. And you'll see this, a lot of people, I don't know if they have a full feeling for the fact that we have under, I believe, 5,000 customers connected to that. About 1,000 plus of commercial, so about a quarter is commercial and the rest is residential, 3,500, that range. So the rest of our community is on-site septic systems for the most part. There's a small treatment plant out at the 4-5 school and the elementary school in the Mills, and there's about 30 units of residential connected to that as well. And then we have a communal system down on Red Lily Pond, just upgrading of Craigville Beach and Colville's Beach. So for the most part, our community are on septic systems. We also know that we've got some real challenges in protecting our natural resources, and that our natural resources are why we're all here. So it is absolutely a priority, our resource protection, whether we're talking about drinking water or we're talking about our ponds and our bays, and even into our open ocean area. So I always go back to this, and I think people are probably tired of hearing me say it. I know our staff actually knows it by heart at this point, but all that we do comes back to, you know, the mission and the strategic plan that's established by our council to our administrative side, and we go out there with the resources you give us and the priorities we set, and you know, proceed with the business that we do here in town. And to protect the town of Barnstable's quality of life and unique character, engage our citizens, and enact policies that respond to and anticipate the needs of our community through sound financial management, open communication that engage our public, and with an equitable balance of resources allocated to improve the quality of life of our residents, businesses, and visitors. And when we think about that statement, to protect the town of Barnstable's quality of life, and we think about what we're challenged with here, to me it comes challenge equals balance. I've had a lot of discussions in the last 6 months about, I don't want to say a siloed thought process, but you know, you've got different groups with their very specific area of interest, yet we're a community. And we have to balance our natural resource protection with our economic development, with our housing needs, with our recreational needs, et cetera, our educational needs, et cetera, et cetera. There are no silos. This is all about balance and equity. So when we begin to think about this issue, and I shared this with my DPW people, you know, they're up for the task certainly, but they all acknowledge that thinking about this outside of just a more limited scope of, let's say, nutrient removal, makes this a lot harder process. But for us to be successful, that's the way we need to look at this. So we need to discuss the challenges we have in managing our water resources while balancing economic development and housing for our community. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. And I'm before Health next week, the Board of Health, to discuss that more with them as well. Discuss the traditional and non-traditional methods to managing our wastewater resources. That's a wonderful opportunity that's presented itself that, you know, a decade ago when we had moved forward with our last, what now they call comprehensive water management planning, formerly they called it facilities planning. When we moved forward with that, we really didn't have the non-traditional opportunities. Now we do. 208 plan helped us open that door. So that's a very positive thing for us. And I'll touch on that as I move forward. From a sound financial management standpoint, we've established a sewer enterprise fund with an annual rate study review that results in rates at a full cost recovery, and we've accrued a reserve of $9.2 million. We've established comprehensive water management and private way improvement fund with dedicated revenues from a portion of our hotel motel meals tax, with an annual revenue stream of $2.5 million and a reserve of $15 million. To my knowledge, and I discussed this with Director Milne, we're not aware of another community that's approached the use of these funds in a designated way that we have done it to comprehensive water management, planning, and private way improvement. So again, a unique, sound financial mechanism for us to plan for these tremendous infrastructure needs in protecting our natural resources, in assuring our economic development, and in certainly looking at our other needs of our community, such as housing. So, you know, the council, with previous projects, established a 50-50 betterment policy that would be implemented as we expand sewer into neighborhoods. We also remain eligible for state revolving funds with a principal subsidy, and that's significant. The principal subsidy is significant. The fact that when they go out, when Barnstable comes in with a AAA bond rating to participate with the state of Massachusetts under the SRF program, they look to put us in the block that they sell out there on the market. They want the town of Barnstable to participate in borrowing here in the state of Massachusetts because of our leadership, because that we have clear plans relevant to how we're going to proceed, and because of our sound financial management. So in coming back to this, it's a complex issue. We have a lot of different things that we're trying to balance in this. And recently, our DPW and our RAC were able to sit down and refine the prior work. Our last plan that was in place got approved in 2006, bringing that forward with the additional layer of information and modeling on nutrient loading to our coastal embayments and the establishment of total loads to those embayments, and so establishing those targets that we needed to meet to keep those, or to move those embayment systems back into a healthy realm. We identified what's currently sewered, where do we have impaired water bodies, where do we need nutrient removal, what is the community have we identified for economic development, what's going on with our ponds and some other needs. So we're, at this point, this is the current version. We typically try to plan for a 20-year period. We're in the process of, I think we're into the phase 2 aspect of this at this point. But I think it's important to note that we never just sit here. And in the this is my 29th year on October 23rd with the town of Barnstable. And in the entire time, I came to the town of Barnstable from private engineering consulting because I had been all over the place and heard about what the town of Barnstable was doing with water resource management. And I said, wow, I'd like to work there. And I came here and they actually hired me to cap the landfill. So I said, oh, well, that's different. So I did that. And that was part of my background too, I guess. But, so ultimately it's very exciting to see this always evolving thought process around this balance and around how we protect these very sensitive resources and still maintain that quality of life for our residents, our businesses, and our visitors. So the RAC did a great job in working with Public Works to create this map for us. From that, we've moved forward. We haven't sat and waited until we complete some process that we already know the direction we need to head. So we've moved forward, and you authorized us to proceed with the design of 3 different, actually you approved 4 sewer projects. One was within the current system where we needed to upgrade the existing sewers, Ridgewood Ave and all the way down to South Street. But Attucks sewer expansion, the Finney's Lane area, and then south of 28 in the Long Pond area. And we are very actively designing those projects now, and we'll be back in before you this CIP year for additional funds to continue moving forward with that. It's been timely with the Vineyard Wind project because one of the routes comes right up Finney's Lane. So we're going to be looking at whether we should bring that trunk line in and do that as part of their construction so we don't have to worry about post redoing the road. So already talked with Vineyard Wind about the fact that that's in the queue for us. Talked with the Board of Health about an interim regulation that they put in place in 2008. I started those discussions back in December of 2017. I did a presentation to the Town Council in February of 2018 on the fact that we had proceeded with questions about a 10-year-old interim regulation and whether new information merited us looking at this regulation again. I went back to them again in August, I believe. I gave the town council an update in August. Back before them in September, and now I'm back before them on October 23rd. I've asked throughout the process for the Board of Health to take this under review and discuss this interim regulation. If I take a moment to explain, because I've had a lot of questions lately. Actually, I've been telling people for about 3 or 4 months to please pay attention to this, because this is a significant issue. And it's about that balance. It's about how do we look at protecting our natural resources, specifically the nutrient loading to our coastal embayments, while we are looking at where we might want to do more dense housing in our community. So that's what really triggered my original thought process back almost a year ago, which was we were looking along the Route 28 corridor at various proposals for housing and looking for where we might do more dense housing. And then it was brought to my attention that there was this interim regulation in place. And I said, geez, that's interesting, considering I've spent all of my time here in Barnstable. I'm really not familiar with the details of this. So it was explained to me. And so I said, geez, we should really go back to the Board of Health and ask them to take a look at this again, because there's new information. And that's where we're at this point, progressing through that discussion process with the Board of Health. I think at the time in 2008, I understand exactly what they were doing when I looked at what they had adopted. And really, it was in reaction, I believe, to us completing our last planning process for wastewater and not seeing the movement that they had hoped we would see. And I believe they felt this was an interim measure that they would take. I wasn't directly involved with that, but that's what I understand from that review of the information. And the chair of the health department has been helpful, and former chair have both met with me to explain their understanding of how this was adopted. So what are we doing relevant to comprehensive water management planning? We're looking at the traditional methods. We're looking at the wastewater, with the pumps and the pipes. We're looking at the Mills treatment plant, because it's coming up, at least time-wise, on the end of its useful life. Functionality is still there. It's still performing. And, you make a decision on how you're going to manage your assets. Are you going to manage them to the end of their useful life, or are you going to manage them to failure? It's always dangerous to do something like a facility that has regulatory compliance requirements to failure, because you don't have a lot of options when you reach that point. So, but on the other hand, these are multi-million-dollar facilities. So we're not concerned that that facility is going to fail, but we also believe that it's nearing the end of its useful life. So we're planning for what will happen next. And as Public Works talks more technically about what we're doing, they're looking at those options, whether you keep a treatment plant there or whether you really create it as a pump station in the future and bring it back east to the Hyannis facility. We also now have, and this is, certainly, in the recent past, a more serious consideration of non-traditional methods. I mean, we've always been a proponent of acquisition of open space, and part of acquiring open space helps us to avoid adding, in the case of whether it's water supply and emerging contaminants. Again, when you only need to look in the mirror to know the true source of where our emerging contaminants come from. We don't have a lot of point sources, even though we have an airport and a fire training academy. Given the detection levels that we're testing down to now, it really is us that introduces this into the environment. Same with nutrient loading. The primary source of nutrients is urine from us. And most of us are on septic systems. So it's pretty much moving into the groundwater and down through the system, and doesn't get a lot of removal. Some, but not a lot. So land acquisition helps to, should be counted toward our management of this issue, even if it's just small percentages that it helps us avoid that larger capital cost. And I'll come back to that for a second when I conclude going over these non-traditionals. We're looking at an intermunicipal agreement we've entered into one with Sandwich, Mashpee, and Barnstable for Pompanesett Shoestring Bay. We're looking at another one for 3 bays. We're talking with Dan Kapnick over in Yarmouth to enter into one with Yarmouth and Barnstable for Lewis Bay. We'll probably have the conversation on the north side as well with Sandwich and Yarmouth for Barnstable Harbor. and the Great Marsh area, and then, Centerville River and East Bay are completely within Barnstable, so we don't need an intermunicipal agreement there. But those provide us opportunities to look differently at how we manage our assets. In that case, saying, well, you need sewer in a particular part of Shoestring Pompanesett may make absolutely no sense. It may be that Mashpee puts in a sewer system, and somehow we help fund that, and it's enough to get the bay below its total load. And those are the sorts of discussions that weren't happening a decade or two ago. Now, the communities, natural systems don't look at political boundaries, so the natural boundaries that contribute to these areas are what we're discussing now and trying to come up with, again, more comprehensive than just the town of Barnstable, solutions that make sense, that minimize cost, and that give us the outcomes that we need to achieve to protect our resources. Mill Pond Dredge is another great project where we're in the process of trying to get our permits from the state to be able to go out there and dredge that, create it as a detention area. It slows down the movement of the water coming from the up gradient. The nutrients are absorbed, and ultimately you don't need to put in pipes and pumps to be able to remove percentages of nutrient load. Dredging that we have planned at 3 bays, there's different types of dredging. Some just opens up existing navigation channels and doesn't have as much flushing impact. When you do a project like opening up a cut, it clearly impacts water in and out of an abatement system. And we've got some projections percentage-wise that can range, I believe it said, from 8 to 12% improvement in flushing. Now, you might say, well, okay, but that doesn't solve the problem. Well, when it's $186 million in today's dollars challenge in the 3 bays area, and you take 10% of that, that's a lot of money. It's almost $20 million if we can achieve that. So these are serious opportunities for us to begin to address in a non-traditional sense, and therefore potentially minimize the pumps and pipes, not take them out of the equation. They're going to be a big part of it, but and we've already begun going forward with a portion of those, but as I went over earlier, but to really look at these non-traditionals and make sure the state is on board with giving us credit for them, and then quantifying it in the field to make sure long-term this really proves out to be the type of solution that we need. We're looking at abandoned cranberry bogs. We're looking at aquaculture, alternative septic systems, permeable reactive barriers if and where appropriate, and then stormwater treatment. And I'll come back to a couple of these later as I show you some figures. So, taking the RACS work and taking the gray area where we already have sewering and then looking at this interim regulation, that's what we're looking at in town. I presented that before. I asked GIS to put where our open space is. Some of it acquired many years ago, some of it more recently, but what I'm going to try to do with that information is quantify it so that, certainly within our south side embayment systems where we know we have exceedances of nutrient load, we're able to begin to say, you know what, making a decision we've already made or decision we might make relevant to keeping a piece of land open has this value with it in avoiding additional nutrient load. We have an extremely aggressive drainage program out there, another contributor to nutrient load. Again, these are non-traditional things people aren't recognizing. And we need to be able to quantify this, and we need to be able to bring it back when we begin considering where we are in addressing this challenge and how it translates back into total nutrients removed from the system, and therefore perhaps avoiding the larger and more expensive pumps and pipes. It also allows us, and is the core of the discussion with our Board of Health, when should we start having recognition of all of these efforts that are going forward? We don't sit and we don't wait for the state to tell us, okay, it's okay for you to proceed now. We proceed. And really you may say, well, that's not, of course it's acceptable. And when we go in and ask for state revolving funds, they don't tell us we can't have the money because you haven't finished the plan. We show them where we are in the plan, we justify the project that we're proceeding with, and they give us the state revolving funds. So it's just an interesting, when people want to prevent things from proceeding, they'll try to throw flags like that. But quite honestly, in practicality, I don't think we've ever been denied by the state when we proceeded with projects, regardless of where we are in a planning process. And the truth is, we never stop planning, because everything changes all the time. Just look on the water quality side with emerging contaminants. And we've seen standards drop, and now there's another discussion going on of another drop. So how can you create a static plan for 20 years when yearly we're seeing major changes that impact how we might address a problem? So truth is, it's always changing. Again, starting to throw, you got the Mill Pond area, you got the Katuitt area, you've got the sewer expansion in that purplish color. I don't know what the best descriptive word of that color is. And that's the discussion we're having with the Board of Health. When you throw drainage and open space in there, it really begins to show you that we're doing a lot in Barnstable relevant to comprehensive water management planning. And I'm not even speaking to the critical balance between water supply and wastewater and disposal of wastewater. We're doing a lot. I hear often from people, as recent as yesterday, and from people who are actively involved, that we're not doing anything. And that is absolutely not the case. Absolutely not the case. I wanted to give you an update. If you have any questions at this point, but we will continue to discuss this actively with the council and the community. And we'll be bringing capital projects forward probably every year here forward. Thank you.
Excellent organizational information. Thank you very much, Mark. Any questions? Yes. Councilor Levesque, Councilor Flores.
No, I was just going to commend Mark and the staff when people remotely suggest that we might not be doing a lot in the town of Barnstable relative to water and wastewater control. I know, having served on the Water Advisory Committee for a couple of years, trying to make sure even our 208 plan was structured in such a way that we were, in essence, meeting the requirements that were basically placed on us by the Conservation Law Foundation in the court case that came about as a result of that filing. I think we have done a tremendous amount of work with a tremendous amount of effort from a number of different, from the DPW to your office and others included. So I actually commend, because as I've always said early on, the most critical issue that we face in Cape Cod from an environmental perspective is not only the quality of our drinking water and making sure that our aquifers remain safe, but also how we control runoff wastewater. The two go together, and we need to continue to monitor that and be vigilant and take any mitigation steps that we can to make sure that we're safe. But great job, thank you.
Councilor Levesque.
Thank you, Vice President Crocker. Basically, I was going to say that, what he just said. So, not to repeat myself, but I was, last night, I was witness to Rob Steen coming to Liberty Hall at Marston's Mills and giving a presentation there and giving up his free time there. Hopefully, he's still got to watch the Red Sox game. But it was a very informative, obviously very similar to what was presented tonight. And I really appreciate the fact that, it's the traditional and the non-traditional. And we are, from what I can see and the research I've learned, in the town of Barnstable, we're on the cutting edge of what's going on, and not only on Cape Cod, but at least on a statewide level, as far as being very active, not reactive, but active in finding a solution to these water quality issues, and we're leading the way. So I really appreciate that, your leadership, and also Director Santos and his staff as well. Thank you.
Councilor Rapcorsetti.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you for the presentation, Mark. This to me is our biggest issue. I'm a little concerned about the discussion. Seems a little premature with regards to your discussion with the Board of Health on amending the existing interim regulation to limit its applicability to the Craigville Beach zoning district. And I don't know, your map, that it's the last page, I guess, before the questions, but it's the one that's outlined in yellow. And it just seems, and I know reading the Article 15 of our code, these regulations are temporary and will be in effect only until the town adopts and implements a comprehensive plan to address nitrogen reduction required. And I know we've adopted the plan and we're beginning to implement it. It just seems a little premature that we would look at lifting the barriers right now until we actually have some sewering going on. And I know there's upcoming sewer expansion areas, but I also know how long it takes. I mean, I don't think we're going to have any sewering within the, at least for 5 years in that area. Is that safe to say? In your map where you've got the purple area, upcoming sewer expansion areas, you know, this sits atop of the Craigville Beach. So I'm concerned, it seems a little premature to be speaking about lifting those regulations until we have a little bit more infrastructure put in, because, and I'm all in favor of these alternatives, but I'm also well aware of the fact that sewering is going to have to be done. And we're talking about it, and we continue to talk about it, and the costs keep rising. And I know we're privy to some SRO, which is great, or SRF, which is great, but we've got to take action and start moving. And I think we're putting the horse before the cart, lifting regulations. So I have to just make sure that the public's aware of this public hearing, which is what it is, with the Board of Health on Tuesday at 3 o'clock in this room, to discuss those regulations. Because again, the public should be aware and is involved, and you know, this is your town. So this is concerning. The other thing that concerns me is you say the make sure the state is on board. Well, that's a big question, especially with regard to Mill Pond, which you've highlighted with a pretty large red circle. I mean, it's up gradient of one of the worst impaired estuaries in the town of Barnstable. And I'm not sure, I mean, are you sure whether or not the state's even going to allow for that kind of dredging? I don't know. That's a big question mark, again, several years down the road. So I just would say, let's be cautious going forward if we're going to lift any of these interim regulations. Thank you.
Councilor Cullen?
Hi, yes, thank you for the presentation. We've heard a lot of it before. It's good to hear it again, but I wanted to comment about the public not being aware of efforts being made on a daily basis in this building with your staff and with council representation and everything else. And you know, I feel like as much as we fumble with Channel 18 and we fumble around with social media, we really don't have, you know, the meat of what's happening. If you wanted to find your presentation, for instance, you would have to go to the town webpage and then look under town council and then click on that and then, you know, suffer through or figure out how to fast forward to that one presentation. I would ask that in an effort to communicate better with people and keep them more informed, that we, like, you know, ask the media to the people upstairs, I don't know,
Yep.
to help us out with, like, making snippets of presentations
Okay.
and putting those live on the webpage. So, hey, I want to know what's going on with C Street. Click, and there is Dan Santos at the Hyannis Civic Association explaining where we are in the bid process. Just make it easy. Our webpage is a cluster, and that's really why people don't know. They get fed up and they don't want to look. So
It's an excellent suggestion.
that's what I
and
would
I
suggest.
find myself having them do that when a resident calls and says, I can't find
Right.
what DPW or you or anybody said.
Right.
And we'll have them create that and we'll send it off to them, but that's an excellent suggestion.
But it has to be friendly. It has to
Yes.
be a picture of you.
It's
and
gotta be
underneath it can't
easy
be
and
like
there
the
and
date
quick
and
and- yes.
yeah, and
Yep.
PDF and all that
Yep.
stuff. It has to be like a link that says what it is and is what it is, and
Right.
it stays there for however long it stays there, and it's archived and it's easy to click to, because that's what that's what I find the biggest impediment is that people want to click on the website, but it doesn't lead them to a road that takes them anywhere. It just is a dead end, dead space thing, and then I have to call and so that's what I'm finding is, because even with people that I consider savvy, I find that a problem.
Mm-hmm.
People like, for instance, when we talk about the fire training academy, the amount of the lack of information that they feel they were given, even though it's not a secret, it just seems like so concealed behind PDFs and download this and you don't have the correct and whatever. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Hebert?
Thank you. I think it's kind of in the same thought here. So we need to keep reminding the public to do good maintenance on the septic systems. We don't want them to fail before we get them sewered. I just had that done at my house. But I said to the man, what condition are we in? He said, you're in excellent condition, and you're good to go for a long time. No, it's not a joke.
Okay.
No. Well, it could be. So I said, well, that's good, but what's the better thing to do? I said, we are on a watershed. So I've got a lot of trees and a lot of plants, and I said, I think that it's contributing to the healthiness of our system. So I said, what would be a new initiative that would do? So he talked about a $1,200 system to put air into the system. So just from your response, who do you want us to go to? Do we go to the Board of Health? Do we go to Dan? Do we go, we can't keep bugging you, but where do we go for advice? Is this $1,200 system that I would add to a good system? One, he says, will extend the life of our system. And number two, it will help reduce nitrate. And I think that's a great idea. And then he reminded me, don't use any fertilizer. And anybody looking at my yard would know there is no fertilizer in that yard at all. So it is the joke. So there was a joke there. So who would you recommend that the average citizen who is trying to do the right thing, who do we contact within the town for the best advice?
To keep it along the lines that Jen suggested, Councilor Cullum suggested, anybody can send an email to us at any time. You can call, you can write, you can try to find someone. So that comes in and Dan Wood typically forwards it to Andy and I. So we get hundreds a day. And then we refer it out. So if I got an email from Mr. Hebert in Centerville, I would forward it over to DPW and I would say, hey, where are we on innovative systems? Is this something we should refer up to the county and George Hoyfelder? Or can somebody get back to this individual and advise them on what they're being told? And then we would respond. And that happens almost instantaneously. So that's an easy way for people to reach out to us and ask questions. Now, we don't tell them which contractor, we don't advocate for technologies, but we can certainly share the information that we have. Some innovative systems are really early in the evaluation stages, and the regulators are reluctant to say it will do something that's being claimed. Others are, well along, and they can talk to you about the level of treatment. They can talk to you about the cost. They can talk to you about, in some cases, the sampling you may have to do. People do like, my experience in this is people do like it to keep it simple, whether it's communication or whether it's you're getting rid of your wastewater. So if you got a lot of bells and whistles on it, people shy away from that, but they'll want to know that. So always reach out to us, and an email's simple. Rather than trying to chase us, and we'll try to direct people to the right place. And you know, and my email is available to everybody in the community, so if you don't get our answer, you know, send it off to me, and I'll make sure they get an answer. I think that, truly, that would be an effective way to communicate on this. Yeah.
Yes, Councilor Beam-Bender?
Thank you. On a related follow-up question to that, so a number of times I've had constituents say to me, you know, for instance, one of them was living near Lake Wequaquet, and they're in this dilemma. They know they should upgrade their septic, but they've also heard there might be town sewering, so they don't want to invest $20,000-$30,000 in a septic upgrade when the town's going to come in 5 years and change everything over anyway. So I know that this plan is in progress, and I know it's going to continue to evolve, and I'm assuming that at some point there's also going to be timetables attached to these different areas. I'm just trying to think proactively how we can sort of communicate to constituents who are in, you know, having these discussions and trying to figure out what their best plan forward is.
They, again, same method, communicate with us on your questions. That always helps. We have a good working relationship with, certainly the health division falls under town manager, but with our Board of Health, they've done a wonderful job with us to take into consideration exactly what you've said, to keep them informed so that they know that when a project that might help a resident manage an issue like that is truly coming forward, that they may make different decisions about systems that are out there. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's a transfer of ownership. Sometimes it's a failed system. But in general, it's about communication. It's about communication with our resident. It's about communication from our Public Works and myself to our Board of Health so that they know where we are with these various efforts and they can best serve our public the same way. You know, we're all on the same team here, so we all try to work together to get to that appropriate point with a resident. There's nothing worse than hearing from a resident that they spent tens of thousands of dollars on an upgrade to a system and then truly sewer comes along and there's a cost to that and they have to incur it as well. That is not a good story to tell. So, but just tell the resident they can reach out to me. I mean, I talk to residents all the time about it, especially this year. I mean, around the lake has been extreme. This is a record high groundwater year. So a lot of people are confused with that. And the groundwater fluctuates quite a bit. That's a whole nother discussion we'll need to have and make available, Jen, to our residents, because there's a lot of confusion about salt water and storm-related events, and then just generally precipitation and groundwater and where it is and the impacts of that. And then if they both happen at the same time, a storm on top of high groundwater, that's even tougher because a lot of our drainage systems leach what falls into the ground, and if the ground's full of groundwater, it's not going anywhere. So it's a very interesting and challenging, you know, situation when things begin to align that way. And we had that this spring, so.
Anyone else? I would like to weigh in myself. I think I'm extremely pleased with the effort put forward by your office and by the Board of Health and by Director Santos's group Director Santos's group at DPW and the expansion of sewer. What you're looking at is we oftentimes feel like we're going to get the assistance we want from the state government. We think DPW is going to get, I should say DEP is going to get in line and they're going to be there for us and we're going to charge down this hill together and we're all going to solve the problem. I just haven't seen it. If you remember, it's DEP that has put in these heavy numbers for building these septic systems and sewer systems that have caused failure when we built brand new schools. We built them in accordance with their regs and we had complete failure of a brand new system. Then when we were in a jam for money, they haven't done anything to look at the global scope of how much money the Cape and Islands will need. It goes further, the state and the 208 plan. Do you know all of the 208 plan put every single state road on Barnstable's back to fix, but we can't put a shovel in a state road. But it all came against us for mathematics. There's just no balance here. And so this home rule issue about us getting up and making a difference is going to be the only way that we make a distance in the shortest distance ahead of us. But we all know and we all talk, new growth dollars. So if you believe that we're doing a number of things, if you believe that the 13 of us and our manager are committed to making changes in these estuaries, if you look at East Bay and you say, gee, we did 2 dredging projects in 4 years, and on the 5th year, the state opened it for cohogs for the first time in 26 years, then you have to say there's other alternatives than big pipe sewer. And when you know there's other alternatives, you have the obligation to advance it. But what does it take to advance these new programs? It takes us dedicating our money, like we did for room tax, putting together 15 million at this point, and we're still growing. We got a dedicated, another fund, as was pointed out earlier. There isn't another town that has these. So are we checking up? Are we doing our job? Are we ready to charge ahead? You better believe it. We had a great program brought forward by Councilor Rapcrossetti to take the road runoff off of the Katuitt dock right into the bay, right into the area. And we've changed all that. And we saw the map. It's dotted. It looks like polka dots on my tie, for God's sakes. He's got something going on every road runoff issue we've seen. We're going to get better. We're going to get better. But we need money to do these things. And we're not going to get better by waiting for the state to help us. We're not going to get better for looking for federal funds. We're going to have to take this really by the horns and try to improve our situation. And I think that's what the crossroad we're at right now. We've had 10 years with an estuary overlay, 10 years. And when we asked, can we take a look at the folder, how we started this whole estuary? You know, there is no folder on this. There isn't a single piece of fact about why the estuaries had to have the overlay district. So we can't compare about what it is they intended to do for a checkoff through the process. We can't talk about whether we've done better by handling all this road runoff and spending all these dollars, because there was no starting point or median in the whole project. And we're talking about a Board of Health who isn't funded to handle these issues. The only group that's funded to handle these issues, it's us, with the leadership we have, with this type of guy who's taken DPW through the paces down at our own sewer system. So we're the ones ready for this. We're the ones who have to take it by the horns, and we're the ones who have to protect our town for future years. So I'm ready. I know you guys are. You've all been great on these issues. I've never heard anybody waver on the issues of protecting our environment and advancing the cause, and I look forward to working with it until it's resolved. It's our biggest issues. You know, we had road problems. We set aside road money. We are catching up with the roads. You know, we have infrastructure problems. But the infrastructure problems aren't going to take the front seat over the environmental problems. We know that. So we have to align ourselves. We have to consider how we make money as a town, how we advance our cause, and how we get to the finish line. And don't expect a lot of help outside until you're shovel ready. So we got to get shovel ready everywhere we can and try to advance our cause. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Great job. I'm on to, yes.
Mr. Vice President, we are not the British Parliament, nor we the Australian Parliament, but I would say, hear, hear.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. We are in the section of communications from elected officials, boards, committees, staff, commission reports, correspondence, and others. May I ask counselors for your communications, please? Yes, Councilor Dagwan.
Yes, I have 2 announcements, one upcoming. The Hyannis Open Street is having their last event of the year this coming Sunday. And there's a lot going on with pumpkin carving, and they're having a costume parade contest. You can also dress your dog up if you'd like to as well. Bring him or her along to participate in the parade. It's called the Parade of the Terribles. This has been such a great addition to our community. And it's because it's a community project. We hold 2 before the tourist season and 2 after the tourist season because we want our citizens to come out. And it's free to everybody, it's family friendly, and it's all kinds of activities that go on. And it's just been growing since we started in 2016. And it's grown because of our partnership with the town, the town manager, the police department, the fire department, who brings the truck out and just let, the kids, explore that. And the help from DPW, as well as the numerous amount of volunteers. No one gets paid to do this. We've had to solicit for funds and from some of the businesses, and they've been really, really good to us, so that we're able each year to put on these 4 events for our residents and our community, and it's for the town of Barnstable, although it's called the Hyannis Open Streets. So I just wanted to say that this coming week, it's Sunday the 21st. It'll be from 12 to 5. And some of the things that are going on, we have several bands. The Fred Clayton Blues Band, the Sturgis High School Band will be there this time around. The Funkapus Band. The Groovalados will be there as well. And there are places where you can win various prizes. There's a hula hoop contest for the YMCA for prizes. But also the Cape Built Development, you can enter to win a prize as well. And they're going to be located on the Village Green, as well as, let's see, who else has a prize here? Renewable by Anderson, win a $15,000 window makeover. They're going to be located at 500 Main Street. So I just wanted to mention some of those. And there, of course, there's lots of events for the kids. We have a scavenger hunt. Sonny the Wonder Horse will be here as well. There's free pumpkin carving, so come on down and show your skills. I think I mentioned the scavenger hunt, which is going to start at the Greater Hyannis information booth and end on the Village Green, and that was a big success. That was something new we added the last one we had in September, and it was a great success. And of course, there's games and basketball on near the Fresh Catch, and I run the Kids Zone, which has lots of activities going on down there. We'll have hockey and golf and stilts, and of course some of the blow-ups that we generally have. And there's a lot of things for adults as well. You can learn how to salsa dance. You can learn to do Zumba. You can learn to do some ballroom dancing, which will be occurring down there. But also, you have the Cape Cod balloon dancer. There's a free book table. There's a fitness demonstration. Get lots of giveaways from Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and you can play to win an ice cream cones at Kilwins at 386 Main Street. So it's the weather's predicted that we're going to have a pretty good day, a little chilly, but a great day to get out and come down and support this free event. And I just want to thank everybody for helping us out, including some of the counselors that came down and walked through. I've seen the town manager at each event as well. We appreciate your support and all of those that have come through from the town. So come out this week. It's this Sunday, 12 to 5, to the last Hyannis Open Street. And I was asked to mention that on November the 10th, I know this is a little not that far away, that there's going to be an update on the Oceanside Performing Arts Center. There will be a meeting at the Resort Conference Center at 10 a.m. on November the 10th. And the Civic Association will be hosting that. So if you want to know where that's going, that will be on November the 10th at 10 a.m. at the Resort Conference Center here in Hyannis.
Thank you, Councilor Dagwan. Councilor Rapkosetti.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I just wanted to make a couple of announcements. As chair of the Appointments Committee, we're charged with interviewing applicants to serve on our boards, committees, and commissions. And we have an opening on the Planning Board, which is a regulatory board, as well as the Zoning Board of Appeals. So those are two important boards that we are looking for applicants. Our next meeting is November 15th on a Tuesday. If you're interested in serving, contact the office at 508-862-4738. And just a reminder to the chairs of all the boards, committees, and commissions in the town, if you have an alternate serving on your committee and one of your regular members resigns, it's the duty of the chair to notify the appointments committee of your intention, your intention to appoint your alternate to serve as a regular member. However, it's the duty of the appointments committee to make recommendation to the full council to move that person from an alternate to a regular member. So just keep you aware of that. If you're not sure the process or procedure, again, contact the town council office. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Flores?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just a couple of events coming up on the north side over in Barnstable Village on October 26th from 6 to 9 p.m. The Village Association will be sponsoring a Monte Carlo night for the second year. It's held at the Matakees Wharf Restaurant. It's usually an SRO crowd, and it's a lot of fun, and prizes and good time and conversation to be had by all. So again, October 26th, 6 to 9. And then the very next day on the 27th, the Village Association is always also sponsoring the Halloween parade. And that's also a fun event. We have hundreds of kids from pretty much all over Barnstable, if you will, dressing up in costumes. They march down Main Street into the back of the courthouse area. County Commissioner Leo Kakunis gives hay rides. It's a lot of fun. We do a costume judging event. So it's a great time had by also between 4 and 6 p.m. And also a lot of the restaurants, a lot of the stores on Main Street, including Smitty's Ice Cream and others, are out there giving away free ice cream and other great condiments, if you will, for folks to participate. And so I hope to see some folks who might be listening, and also want to commend my fellow councilor, Deb Dagwan, relative to the Hyannis Open Streets. I go to all of those, and they are an absolute blast. They're a lot of fun. And I'm always amazed to watch Deb, Councilor Dagwan, put on her teacher hat, if you will, that she did for so many years, and she runs the most organized kids' bounce house that one could ever imagine. So a fun time, and I would encourage folks to enjoy that.
Thank you. Any other counselors? I'm sorry? Yes.
May I ask, Councilor Flores?
Follow-up?
A follow-up. You said it's an SRO?
Standing room only.
Thank you.
Well, what did you think? That's the acronym that I know. There's no joke in here, Paul.
Hearing no further communications, with the permission of the council, I'd like to move to the orders of the day. Hearing no objections, the orders of the day. Councilor Biedenbender, I would love to have this brought forward as 219-033 with some people who've been riding the bench with us for a couple hours.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. This is new business and may be acted upon. This is item number 2019-033, repeal of Chapter 241-16 of the Town of Barnstable Administrative Code, Barnstable Economic Development Commission. This may be acted upon.
Thank you. Should we have any discussions, Town Manager? Let's do appointments, please. Yes, Councilor Rapcorsetti.
I will note that the Appointments Committee was briefed by the President of the Council as well as the Director of Planning and Development and the Town Manager, and to that, as we all have heard, the thought is to create a task force or SWAT, which for those that don't understand what a SWOT is, something about
It's strength, weakness, opportunity.
opportunity, and
And
threats. So, and I'm very grateful for Mr. Feldman and all the members of the BEDC who have served on that board. And I would hope that their expertise and input could be utilized going forward with tasks presented by the council president when he forms a new committee. So, and that vote to dissolve this or repeal this chapter was unanimous by the Appointments Committee.
Any councilors for the discussion? Yes, Councilor Cullum.
Yes, I just want to say thank you again to Alan Feltham and to Hank Farnham and the other people that have served on the committee. Chris Kehoe is one that's been on the committee for a long time too. I'm going to support this, and it's not because I want to take anything away from your contributions over the years. It's just that I think after 35 years, it might be time for a fresh look at things. And I did submit your name as you asked me to do. And I hope that we see you again. I think that you provide a very interesting aspect on things in town. We may not always agree, but I appreciate that you're always involved. And I don't ever want to take away from that. And I did just want to say thank you to you personally for that. Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Cullum. I will note 2 Scribner errors. This is actually old business, as it was introduced on 10-4 and back again before us tonight. Councilor Flores?
Yes, Mr. Vice President. Pretty much want to echo what Councilor Cullum just stated. Alan, I want to thank you sincerely, as well as Hank Farnham and the other members of the Economic Council for all of the work that you've done and advice that you've given us over the years. I would hope that any member of the current committee that does apply to the Appointments Committee for the new version, if you will, as we move this forward, would be seriously considered for appointment. And I would hope that those folks that have not been around to make quorum probably should look to join other committees that perhaps don't meet as often, because this is a very critical committee. We look to you for advice. We look to you for information. And Alan, and I know Hank has left, but I hope that you will continue to be on the new formation, because you have a wealth of experience. You know the history, you know the culture of the community as well as anybody. So I applaud your past efforts and look forward to working with you in future efforts.
Yes, Councilor Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. So that the public knows that you, Alan, you presented us with a beautiful document of what your committee has been working on, what your vision is, your suggestions for the future, and well done, and we thank you with a lot of gratitude. So I would second that thought that I'm going to be voting for this tonight, and it is not negative to your committee whatsoever. You've done a great job as a chairperson to move it forward and keep it together, and it's just time for something new. I know that you won't disappear, and you'll keep contributing, and I really, really appreciate it. It is important for me to, again, I'd like to keep as many committees going and as much public input as we possibly can, and this is not to discourage that. At the same time, I also like it when we can all agree on a good thing and work together to make it better. So thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote on 2019-033 as written. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Make that unanimous, please. Thank you. Another group of bench riders with us tonight. Thank you for enduring our meetings and our efforts. Actually, I'd like to go back to Councilor Beden-Bender again on this one, please.
This is old business, item number 2019-034. This is approval of change of purpose to allow the grant of an easement to Vineyard Wind LLC in a parcel of land, namely that portion of Covell's Beach and shown on Assessor's Map 225 as parcel 006. This may be acted upon. It requires a roll call vote, 2/3 vote.
And I have a second? much. Rationale?
Turned it off. Good evening, Mark Ells. The overview that I'll provide you with is both the rationale for Town Council Order 2019-34, 2019-35, and 2019-36, all related to the Vineyard Wind Cable landfall and easement at Colville's Beach. I had done this recently for you, but it continues to provide the ongoing description of what's occurring and why these items are before you. And we began our discussions with Vineyard Wind back in 2016 and met regularly throughout 2017 and 2018. And in May of 2018, Vineyard Wind was awarded the 800 megawatt offshore wind farm. We commenced weekly meetings at that point, and since May of 2018. In September of 2018, Town Council authorized the town manager to enter into a community host agreement with Vineyard Wind. We had two primary objectives. First was to prevent interconnection to the cable that would landfall here, potentially, at Colville's Beach. Second, to protect water resource, specifically public water supply. And I'll just stop for a minute because in the last 2 weeks I've had a lot of questions compared to the prior process that we've been in. I had very few questions actually, but and I'll say that within the host agreement we were focused on areas that we did not feel that there were adequate regulations, rules, out there to make sure that the town of Barnstable was protected as a project of this magnitude comes into our community. Issues related to decommissioning, issues related to the electromagnetic radiation, issues related to construction and site safety. All of those things are either regulated by the federal, state, or locally, and there's very clear laws, rules, procedures, policies, codes relevant to them. So we said to ourselves in entering into the agreement, okay, those will stand, and they'll run concurrent with the processes, the appropriate processes that will occur. These two issues we did not feel were adequately addressed. And so within the host agreement, that was truly the focus of our discussions with Vineyard Wind, to make sure that at the end of the day, we felt confident that we had protected the town of Barnstable in moving forward in these specific areas. The other, as I have already spoken to, will protect us, and that's why they're in place to begin with. We weren't going to try to second guess what those stated. On October 3rd, the town manager entered into a community host agreement with Vineyard Wind. They're before the Energy Facility Siting Board right now. They're ongoing hearings. Going into this October process before the EFSB, Vineyard Wind modified their filing with the EFSB, identifying Colville's Beach as its primary landing. Prior to that, it was not. It was their secondary landing. You've seen these pictures, but basically southeast of Martha's Vineyard is the area that they've been awarded to construct their wind turbines. A lot of people don't know that there's already cables that have landfalled into Falmouth, Dennis, Barnstable. This particular project originally had New Hampshire Avenue as its primary and Colville's as its secondary. They flipped those in the most recent EFSB hearings. It shows the route that they're proposing to follow for their Phase 1 project, which would take it short length on Craigville, up Strawberry Hill, all the way up through Finney's to the Independence Park substation. Just a quick picture. The manhole that's in here is the one that's associated with The cable that's in Ocean Street, there's a landing from Nantucket at Calmus Beach. Similar technology to install the cable coming into the shoreline. 5 miles of cable running up through the streets of Barnstable, and basically that services Nantucket. Vineyard Wind easement for the landfall and construction. It's for both of their phases that they'd be looking at, a first and a second. The easement provides legal rights for them to go into the facility, construct the landing, and then it would be a subsurface cable and associated boxes, and I'll show you that in a later photo that we have, later map that we have. And permitting is a separate process, as I've said in the past, both locally, state, and federal. I mean, certainly they'll be before Public Works, and they'll be before building and site plan review as they move forward with their project here. Specifically within resource areas, they'll be before the Conservation Commission. So the Colville's Beach Landing, we've actually talked about several different locations, but as we began to talk most recently with their engineers, the easterly portion for Phase 1 landing made a lot of sense to them. The concern, we were originally thinking, geez, it would be a shortest run if we came right under the bathhouse and right into Craigville Beach Road, and they were able to head east from there. But the bottom line is the drilling equipment would actually have to be out in Craigville Beach Road, so that really created some logistics issues with trying to do it there. We really wanted to keep them off the public roads. They'll have a machine, and I'll show you a little figure later on that'll give you a feeling for how they'd site this. Here with me is certainly our legal staff and Vineyard Wind representatives, so that if we get into detailed questions, they are the proponent of this, so I am communicating what they have shared with us through the various processes, but certainly they are here as I finish my review to answer any and all questions that you had. Their legal counsel is also here with them. So you can see that they actually have 2 cables coming in Phase 1. They run into boxes. They come together shortly after the box, kind of on the north side of the parking lot. You can see the yellow line. That would be the area during construction that would close off. So a good portion of the beach, and this would be out of summer season, would be closed, but residents could access the beach area throughout the construction project. If they're awarded Phase 2, which they intend to pursue and are hopeful, we had discussions within this host agreement that they would install they would install Phase 2, and whether they got Phase 2 authorization or not, because we did not want them coming back into Colville's and disturbing it a second time. You can see the Phase 2 run. That's the one that's a little bit higher in the photo that we have, and we would have similar sorts of closure of the beach area during that construction. It's anticipated that Phase 1 drilling and installation of the boxes and then pulling the cable into the box oceanside and then running it back out into the road will take a season, so that they're anticipating a 2-season construction. So if they started in the fall, they'd get Phase 1 done. They'd come in the spring and get Phase 2 done. They'd patch the parking lot. Then they'd probably do, it would be my preference that they actually allow it to settle over the summer and then come back in the fall and do a final pavement course over the entire parking lot. But we'll have to see how it goes. That's assuming that they don't hit any boulders or any obstructions as they do their drilling, and that the weather certainly allows them to proceed as they believe they will be able to. I've already showed you that picture at the Calamus Landing. After it's done, you're going to have a couple of access panels in the parking lot and a repaved parking lot. So it's not going to, it's going to look like any other utility when they're done. In-road construction, it's typical trenching. They have a box and then they lay conduit in it and then they pull cable through conduit. It's a hardcore cable. So we don't have worries about, any liquid-type cable. That was one of the concerns we had in a prior project. So this should be a pretty straightforward construction project. Certainly, we have drainage, we have water, we have gas lines, we may have sewer. Certainly, when we run through roads where we're currently designing sewer, we're going to want to drop those lines in at the same time, so we don't have to come back and cut the road again, and we'll take advantage of the fact that they're going to restore the road to equal or better condition, certainly. And so we expect it to proceed just like any other utility construction project along our roadways, something that we do all the time throughout town. We'll have a full-time dedicated inspector on the job, and we expect it to proceed just like any other construction project. I think it was a good point. Somebody pointed out that, yes, there is disruption during construction projects. We'll try to minimize that. We'll try to get them in and out of there as quickly as possible. They've been, it's been a good working relationship, and I expect that will continue through construction. And we certainly have the experience in managing those sorts of activities. Directional drilling, the machine will sit in the parking lot. They're going to go down about 30 feet under the beach, and they're going to emerge 600 to 700 feet out, and then they are about 6 to 8 feet below the surface there on out. And that's pretty much what happens. And then they have a big concrete box in the ground, and then the cable goes into the box, and there's a manhole to the box, and then the cable goes out into the roadway through that conduit system that we just showed you. So it certainly is a new project in its entirety, but certainly what they're going to do at Covels and what they're going to do in our roadways is pretty standard utility construction. The substation is a completely different matter. We're not in the business of constructing substations. Certainly utilities are. That's where, within our host agreement, we have worked with them to establish a closed system, contained system, to make sure that there isn't any potential, or minimizing the potential risk of the materials, the oils that are in that substation entering the environment and potentially contaminating some downgrading receptors, specifically our water supply. So you have 3 orders before you. The first order is to the approval of the change of purpose to allow the grant of an easement. The second one is an order to petition the General Court of the Commonwealth to enact special legislation approving the grant of the easement to Vineyard Wind. And then finally, the approval of the grant of the easement. And these were drafted and can be explained both by our legal department and counsel of Vineyard Wind. And that's my explanation of the orders that are before you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. If I could, would you ask Eric to come up and ask
Yes.
him to introduce our new partners here in this process?
Good evening, Eric Stevens. I'm the Chief Development Officer with Vineyard Wind. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for working with us. I know it was timely, and there was lots going on your side, lots on ours, and you seem to be very earnest in your efforts to come forward with us and work something out. Mark was good enough to keep us in the loop as leadership, and I have to tell you, it's greatly appreciated, your effort. May you introduce from afar the couple gentlemen with you tonight?
We have Nate Mayo, is our Manager of Policy and Development. Jen Cullen behind Nate, who's doing a lot of our community outreach and a Barnstable native, I will add. And in front of Nate is our counsel, Tad Hooer from Foley Hoags.
Thank you very much. I have my counsels, and we have Eric. Would anybody like to ask a question of Eric? Yes, Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. A couple of questions. First, has the Siting Board made a final determination as to where they're going to approve?
No, we don't expect that approval until sometime this spring, early spring, March, thereabouts.
Early spring, okay. And I assume that Vineyard Wind will be applying for that second 800 megawatts.
Yes, yes. And that's the rationale for having the host community agreement and the easements contemplate a second cable project coming ashore at
And we
Cobbles.
would use those same cable boxes to run that cable?
So
for
the
the
idea,
most part.
the first project, we would install both the conduit and the boxes, and then the cable itself to serve the first project that we're actually right now going to construction on for the generation. For the second project, we would just install conduit and the boxes and the duct only. And even then, just for the portion where there'd be expected overlap. So that would be, for example, Cobbles Beach parking lot, as we saw, and a part of Craigville Beach Road, where we would expect both projects to be in the same place or under the same road. So we do all that under road work, under parking lot work at once, but the actually install the cable itself would come later. But that's a much less impactful project. You basically open up the manhole covers, a truck comes along and pulls the cable into the ductwork, which is already there. There's no construction of the street itself. It's a pretty straightforward process.
Just a couple of other questions. The substation that eventually terminates in Independence Park, the safety features relative to any liquid, any kind of deterioration that might occur where it could impact the quality of water, because that sits on top of an aquifer in Precinct 1 on the north side of the town. Share with us or share with me the safety features that are involved in making sure that that thing is ironclad from having any kind of a problem.
Right, and I'll just preface by saying, you know, sort of been a theme tonight that protecting the town's water quality. When we very first came here and made this proposal, it's been clear that that's the top priority of obviously the council, but also the town staff. And it's, I would say, probably about 80% of our time and attention and doing the host community agreement and so on has really been about this very issue of protecting the town's aquifers and water. So specifically to your question, we'll have a 110% containment of the fluids. That is to say, of the fluids that are in the transformers, if they were to leak, there'd be a concrete structure underneath that would collect and contain that, and there would be a system to drain away rainwater, but then to block that drain in the event of some sort of failure that caused fluid to leak out. And in addition to that, you know, a big part of the host community agreement is a process by which the town will, with expert support, consultant support, will be reviewing our more detailed plans as we develop them. We're still early in the process of developing the specifics, other than the general requirements that I just described, but a lot of the specifics are still to be designed. And so the town will be reviewing that, again, with expert support. And there will be a process, it's all laid out in the host community agreement, by which if the town feels like the designs aren't satisfactory or aren't adequate, we would come to an agreement to how to ensure the total safety of the water supply.
Okay. And just a comment that Town Manager Els had made relative to the resurfacing of the road to bring it back to where it was. I would hope that that would be curb-to-curb kind of resurfacing.
That's right.
So that wouldn't look like a patching program, right?
As well as the parking lot at Coles.
Okay, and finally, from a tax benefit perspective, you know, I've read X amount of dollars that would be coming to the town over a period of time, especially over a longer period of time if you got that second 800 megawatts and it did come into the community. But this will also benefit, I would assume, the fire districts that you have to come through. I assume that there'll be some tax money involved that will benefit the Hyannis Fire Department, the Com Fire Department, as well as the Barnstable Fire Department, because you have to pass through each of those independent, prudential, and fire areas.
Right. So
is that correct?
That's right. So the entire installation is treated as personal property, so we would pay personal property tax, and as you suggest, that's both the town itself, but also to the fire districts.
Okay. Great, that was my final question, just the final comment. I really want to commend Town Manager Els and Charlie McLaughlin, our attorney, and really Vineyard Wind as a whole for, I think, the cooperative spirit that I've seen. I know I've been out on the trail with Nate Mayo, walking through Comacoot Heights and other areas over the past 6 months, making sure that, at least representing Precinct 1, that we were taking into account what's in the best interest of the town and the safety of the community, which is so critical, and again, protecting our water and our aquifer to make sure that that's never going to be an issue for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Before I move on, I just want to fall back to one point John offered. We had discussions about ensuring that the disruption to the community at our recreational area was minimized, and to Eric and his leadership, they found a way to ensure that all the construction in the parking lot would occur on a single effort, even though they'll be shooting cables through later. But we're not going to tear this place up more than one go. I saw hands down this way. Yes.
Thank you.
Council Snap.
Just under a best-case scenario, when would be the first construction?
For the town, the fall of 2019.
Really, that soon?
Right.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Hebert.
Thank you. Eric, could you just speak for a second? This is not the first time that your collaborative has done this kind of a project. You've been in the wind industry for some time, so you bring a lot of expertise into this. So where for us, it's like the first heart transplant, for you, this is something that you've experienced, worked out bugs and any kind of problems. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, well, an offshore wind project of this scale is new to the U.S. Our team is, the technical team for sure, is mostly Europeans, where they have 20-some years of experience doing these offshore wind projects, including some of the largest offshore wind projects in the world, some of the most recent and some of the earliest. We literally have on our staff engineers who worked in the very first offshore wind project. So we have a lot of experience in our team, that's for sure.
So it's not like we're an experiment.
No.
Okay.
No.
I just wanted to point that out so that people feel confident
Right.
that you're on a good footing here.
Yeah, and that's for the offshore wind part. For the cable installation, as the town manager was saying, that actually is pretty run of the mill. There's nothing really special about it. Actually, it's just installing underground cable, and there's many miles of similar cable around the state already. So that part of it is actually pretty standard and routine.
Thank you, Eric. And the only question that one of my constituents called me about was concern that there was some kind of, because of the cable passing through with that amount of energy, that it could, have some kind of health effect. And I just reminded everybody that we have wires going by our houses most of the time, and that they're bringing electricity, and I don't think there's any more side effect from those than there is from your cable.
That's right. So the EMF is a question that we get. Because our cable is so EMF stands for electromagnetic fields, and because our cable is buried, the electrical field is actually blocked by the soil, and so really what we're talking about is a magnetic field only. And that's very easily modeled. It's very well understood how this works. It's basic physics, and so those magnetic fields can be modeled and demonstrated to be below the limits, well below the limits set by the state and even international guidelines. This is something that the Energy Facility Siting Board literally spent a day delving into to make sure that that all was in order. But at the end of the day, we're just talking about a magnetic field, and it's a very weak field. It's weaker than the magnetic field of the Earth itself, and refrigerator magnets, anything else like that. So it's as you said, it's really not an issue.
Councilor Rapkar-Setti.
Thank you. Thank you for your stick-to-itiveness and coming to our community. I think Barnstable dodged a bullet with regard to the project that was proposed for our sound. So I'm glad to see that this is out of sight, but it's not out of mind. So you're going to put Phase 2 infrastructure in Koval's Beach area without having it permitted. Is that correct?
No. So the what we're putting in, what we would be putting into the is just the duck bank, as I said, and we would need to get the permits necessary for that particular piece of the work. So we're not installing an offshore wind farm. We're not installing an offshore cable. We're not installing any cable, actually, for that matter. It's just sort of pre-installing just the duct work only.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So that you only have to do that one. So you're
Exactly.
taking a risk by getting that permit because conceivably you might not get permitted for Phase 2, but that's unlikely. And on the heels on our project that we have off Calmus, which goes to Nantucket, that was Phase 2 of Nantucket's transmission line. The initial phase went to Harwichport, and I think that was in '95, and so it was 10 years later that they needed a second transmission line, which came in through Hyannis. So how, between Phase 1, if you're saying you're going to start building in 2019, when will you on the heels of Phase 1 permitting, go after Phase 2 permitting, or will you wait 5 years, 10 years, or what's the thought on that?
It would be sooner rather than later, I would say. So we have a lease area. The town manager showed that map. We have a lease area issued by the Federal Bureau of Ocean Energy Management that gives us the right to install offshore wind projects, and that's all we have the right to do in that area. And it is our business of Vineyard Wind to build out that area with wind generation. The Commonwealth has a policy of achieving 3,200 megawatts of offshore wind. This first project is 800 megawatts of that. There will be additional solicitations, most likely coming 2019, sometime in the summer maybe. We will, as a business, be wanting to bid and participate in that. Of course, we don't know if we will win. And whether we start the permitting for such a project before winning is we're thinking about that now. It worked out well for us for this first project. But whether we would do that again, I just don't really know right now. But for now, the idea is, and you're right, we would be taking a risk, not just on the permitting, but also just commercially if we don't ever get another power contract with utilities. We would have made that expenditure. But also, as you said, we're anticipating that eventually, if it's not 2020, say, maybe it would be 27 or something like that. So we expect it to be put to use pretty soon.
Okay. One last question for you, and then I have a question for the manager. You say, oh, well, it's just putting in, utility. Well, one of my pet peeves are manhole covers and the placement of manhole covers. So there's one that was shown in the graphics. How many manhole covers between falling on land to the site where you have to connect? We talking
you
about
mean in
every quarter mile, every third mile?
In the street?
Yes. Because I don't know how many there are, and it's a little technical.
Yeah.
But I respectfully request, if you're going to do that, if you're going to rip up the road, put them in the center of the lane, not off to where you ride on the tire. No, I'm serious, because they fail on a pretty regular basis, like our catch basin. So that would be one thing that I would have to say.
Thanks.
But I do have a question for the manager with regards to our easement with the Nantucket line. Since you brought it up, and it's now connected to our facility, How many years was that easement, or what kind of terms are we getting from that transmission?
As far as I know, I think there was a one-time payment. I can get you a copy of the agreement, and then they restored the roadways.
And that was it?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
There is also the value of the personal property value, so that gets added to the tax base. But as far as a host, it was a pretty standard agreement that did not include what this host agreement has included. Yes.
Councilors, yes, I'll work my way down. Councilor Flor.
Yeah, just a couple of other quick comments that have come to mind. When the 800 megawatts are actually performing at peak and coming into the substation for transfer, who will be buying that power?
The three largest utilities of the state that serves the entire Commonwealth.
Okay.
They'll be buying the power and providing it to their customers across the state.
And for the sake of when people hear 800 megawatts, 1,600 megawatts, sometimes they can't connect how many houses that means. In a typical situation, 800 megawatts will service how many households?
Over 400,000 homes, actually about
Substantial.
6% of the state's electricity.
Okay,
So it's a
and
substantial
finally,
amount.
I happen to serve on the Nuclear Decommissioning Advisory Panel, and we're closing Pilgrim Nuclear June of 2019. So the sooner we get this on board, we're going to be losing a substantial amount of power from the grid with that closure. And that really is a carbon neutral kind of energy source, which obviously this also will be a carbon neutral energy source. So I applaud the time frame that we need to be really aggressive, if you will, to respond to the loss that we're going to be experiencing with the closure of Pilgrim, and then bringing this in to make up the difference, plus and both of them being obviously environmentally safe.
Yeah, thanks. And I would add to that, there's a number of fossil plants being closed in the region as well, Brayton and Canal. And so you're absolutely right. This project, we think, is really timely and will help not just with clean energy supply, but also the stability and the robustness of the grid in this region.
Councilor Biedenbender.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Eric, thank you so much for coming forward, and thank you and Vineyard Wind for working so hard with our town staff to come up with an excellent MOU and a partnership moving forward. Thank you very much. Not you, but this conversation has already been had. Some of these questions have already been answered in other meetings, but I just want to ask a couple of things because they've come up from constituents, and I just want to put it out there for people to hear. One of the things that has come up is that you've certainly addressed the EMF piece where it's underneath the sand, and so there's no magnetic radiation. But some have expressed concern about, well, what about the cables that are lying underneath the road? So just if you can just talk to the specs regarding the concrete encasement and the thickness and.
Right. Yeah, it's not just in the beach, it's also in the road. It's exactly the same thing because it's it'll be at least 3 feet below the road surface. It will be where this concrete encasement starts, and then the cables themselves will be encased in sort of a foot or two of concrete on top of it. So it's substantial, and that's what blocks the electrical fields. And so all that remains is the magnetic fields. And given that it is that distance below the surface, they're very weak at that point. Okay. They're well below any of the standards.
Thank you. One last question that relates to timetables, and we've touched on it little bits and pieces here. But it is a construction project for the most part, but, of course, people go, well, have you seen what's been going on down here or down there? So sort of a sense of, I don't know that you can do it now, but if at some point you can sort of release a timetable of how this project progresses, and then sort of an estimation of, so, you know, when it's on the road, it takes X amount of days to lay X amount of cable, and so, you know, you can expect the road to be disrupted for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 days, just so that people have a sense of what to expect when they have to make that sacrifice. That would be great.
No, certainly we will do that. And the next step in that is planning, sort of call it joint planning with our engineers and the town's engineers and staff, to further specify the exact route and location of the cables. And then once we have that in hand, develop a construction schedule, as you're saying, to minimize disruption, and you know, to do exactly, we can give people as much notice as we can. We want to ensure, you know, yes, there'll be inconvenience to go around it, whatever, but there will be passage through the roads at all times and those sort of things. And as the town manager said, you know, oversight from an inspector to, you know, if there are complaints, you know, that people know they can, who to bring it to, and know that they'll get action on it.
Thank you very much. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further, council? Yes, Deborah Dagwan, please.
Yes, what's the lifespan of the cable? Is the cable that's going under the road deteriorating faster than the one that's going?
The cable from the project site offshore all the way to the substation has a lifespan of decades. It really, you know, something like 40, 50 years, in some cases even longer, which is longer than the lifespan of the turbines themselves. So we would anticipate, you know, it's possible that, you know, someday we'll be here, you know, next generation will be here in this room maybe, talking about repowering the lease area and continuing to use that cable infrastructure.
Just as a follow-up, how do you monitor the cable? How do you know if nothing's going wrong or?
With a system called SCADA, which I'm not going to remember what that means on like standing room only, but but basically it's a system that uses fiber optics with sensors, and I'm not an engineer, so I'm sorry I can't really explain it very well. But the short answer is the entire length of the cable is monitored for temperature and for the voltage levels and things like that, so that there's constant awareness of it and automatic systems in place if there is something that's out of specification.
For your presentation.
Thank you.
One more time, thank you, Eric. One more time, if I may, with the manager. I've had a question about just a quick review of the agreement from the monetary side, including if there is an estimate of personal taxes, which is very difficult until assets are identified, but whatever you can tell us.
Sure. The host agreement is separate from the personal property tax. I know we've already been asked the fire district aspect. So the assessor will value the personal property asset of Vineyard Wind, you know, all assets as they exist in Barnstable. The estimates based on what Vineyard Wind has given us at this point relevant to personal property tax and the numbers it'll generate were between, I believe it was between $710,000 and $950,000 a year for town taxes. Fire district and other taxes are in addition to that. So that's outside, and that will occur as the asset is placed in the town of Barnstable. Within the host agreement, we have 2 phases potentially here. So we'll talk to phase 1. And there were also some associated costs that we identified in going through this process. They were tens of thousands of dollars that were included in the host agreement. But the primary was the host fee. If they proceed and are successful in obtaining the easements and landing at Colville's Beach, it was $16 million. for the Phase 1 work. And we have an equation, depending on what the property taxes are, so that their business model would work, or rather the personal property taxes, so that they are given time over the 25-year life of the host agreement to pay, and they were trying to keep it under $1.534 million a year to the town of Barnstable. So if the property taxes are on the lower side, they may pay that $16 million off over a shorter time period, maybe 15 years. If it's higher, it's up toward the $1 million range, then it'll take most of the 25-year. In coming into the 25th year, we're going to run an equation on where are they on the $16 million, and they will be required to pay us during the term of the contract the remainder of the host agreement, whatever that difference is, if it still exists. And we wanted to do that to make sure that they were still viable within their agreements, both in the area that they have their turbines and in their agreements, their revenue source agreements with the utilities to purchase the electricity. If Phase 2 proceeds, we replicate that, both in taxes generated and in host fee. If it goes beyond 25 years, we have put in for, because they said, well, they would probably try to extend it for another 25 years. So year 26 through 50, for Phase 1, it's $60,000 a year into the 26th year. Phase 2 would be $60,000 with a 2.5% escalator through the remaining years. So if we get, both phases are in place, it would be $120,000 plus 2.5 a year.
Thank you. That was a question of both Councilor Flores and Councilor Tinsley. Thank you, gentlemen. Any further discussion? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just the further comment, because early on in the whole process, I was very concerned that we were being a little too tough, mostly in the name of Attorney Charles McLaughlin. I called him a little bit, I called him a mother lion, and I said that he was so protective of our town, and I do want to send a kudo to you, Charlie, for your great work. And I know he left no stone unturned, and I had a meeting with him because I wanted to know why you so, but he said he's protecting the town, so thank you, Charlie.
Any other questions? I will take one moment, if I may, because I did suggest, even though we're not in a public hearing, that anyone who has not spoken tonight, if they want to make a brief statement from public comment portion of this, they're welcome to at this point, even though we're not in a public. Seeing none, I would take a motion from the floor. I have a first and a second to move the question. All those in favor? Oh, I take it back. You spoke a little earlier tonight. Can you come to the mic? We can't do this long distance. Thank you.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions, if I may, and I really appreciate hearing
Well,
this
please, you're going to
full
ask me.
information.
This isn't a give and take, so it's me and you first. Thank you.
Okay. Just in what I heard right then, and some are just details, not meant to be thinking about, oh, my poor me inconvenience, but just to have all the facts on the table. I just wanted to understand if walking the beach is a protected possibility or whether we're blocked on that. And just to let you know, I do consider myself a butter. My house is about a mile away, and this is my beach.
Yes.
I also heard talking about containment of fluids in the underground stuff, and the concrete offered as a container for fluid. As far as I know, concrete is porous. So I just wanted some clarification on that. And it would be useful for me to understand, public utilities are regulated. I don't understand for sure whether this source of energy is in the same way a public utility, in the same way regulated. I think we're going to be looking at energy and the increased demand for electricity. Obviously, Pilgrim going down, the humidity on the Cape going up, air conditioning, et cetera. And I just want to make sure that this is a collective venture going forward, not all the risk being taken on one part and then the rates going up unbelievably high. I want to make sure this is a joint progressive endeavor. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And your name again, I'm sorry?
My name is Grove Harris, and the
Thank you,
address is 95 Fifth Ave.
Thank you, Groth. Two of the questions are within the scope of our discussion tonight, so I'll take the first two. And I feel I have a clear understanding of what they are when you have construction in a public area. But if I may, Eric, ask you to come back one more time. She was talking about the safety when we're out on the beach. Obviously, you're running from water to dirt. We've seen magnetic fields. We see up in the city where dogs get hit by underground lightning and so forth. So can you give us some assurity of the process as you come ashore and into the boxes?
Right, so the cable would be buried under the seafloor 6 to 8 feet for the length from the offshore generation area to about 6 to 700 feet offshore of the beach. From there, it would start going deeper, so that when it gets to sort of the tide line area, it'll be about 30 feet under the soil. And then it'll start arcing back up as it gets towards the parking lot, and again, it'll be about 8 feet as it comes across into the parking lot. And so as far as EMF, as I was saying, it's well buried under the beach. It's encased in a hard plastic protective cover, and then there's a metallic cover over that, and then a rubber sheeting over that. So it's a very stable and very rugged cable.
Thank you.
And there'd be no disruption to the, or no limitation to using the beach even during the construction.
Yes, thank you. We do have that second one. It says about the concrete offered for containment and concrete being porous, the overspouts and so forth. And as you described it to us, it sounded very similar to what we call the MDC trap, where you separate oils and water, and then there's an automatic shut-off if it even gets to a limit as well. But can you talk about the tank and how it's lined? And how
Right.
it may be
Yeah,
prepared?
it is. I was simplifying. It is concrete, but then yes, there's a membrane on top of that exactly to contain the fluid. And the fluid we're talking about is not actually buried. It's in the transformer. It's just the part at the substation itself.
Yes.
So,
Terrific. Thank you for the clarity.
thank you.
I do see our illustrious attorney, Charles McLaughlin. Is he here? Please, Charles, thank you again for your effort on
Yes,
this.
thank you. Just to clarify, unlike the previous project for Nantucket Sound, which was going to have liquid-filled cables ashore and at sea, with the same product that we are greatly concerned about affecting our water tables, their cables from day one are going to be dry. It's a different methodology of delivering electricity. So until the point where they get to, and I think the woman who was asking the question a short while ago may have been confused. The cables are dry until they get to the substation, and it's the equipment at the substation that has the fluids we're trying to contain. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you for your help, Charles. Any other questions? I hear move the question. Do I hear a second? Madam Clerk, we have a roll call vote on this. We need 2/3, please. Oh, first we got to move the question successfully. All those in favor of moving the question? All right, we're headed down that path, Madam Clerk. It's all yours.
Counselors Biedenbender,
Yes.
Crocker James,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Gagwan. Yes. Flores,
Yes.
Rap Grissetti,
Yes.
Hebert,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you very much, counselors. And thank you, Town Manager. Excellent piece of work. We have 2-for-1 here, I think, to clean up the rest of our business, and I would go to my favorite win guy, Counselor Tinsley, please.
Mr. Vice President, if I could for a moment, we had, just for the record, that was a 2/3, that was a unanimous vote
Yes.
on 034.
Yes.
May I suggest that you take separate votes on 035 and 036, just for the record?
I certainly would.
Thank you.
I agree. Counselor Tinsley, I'd like to open them together, though, and we'll take a vote individually on 035 and 036, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Vice President, old business, item number 2019-035, order to petition the General Court of the Commonwealth to enact special legislation approving the grant of easement to Vineyard Wind LLC and a parcel of land, namely a portion of Covell's Beach, and shown on Assessor's Map 225 as parcel 006 as written. Also, through you.
036, please.
Through you, Mr. Vice President, item number 2019-036, approval of grant of easement to Vineyard Wind LLC in a parcel of land, namely a portion of Covell's Beach, and shown on Assessor's Map 225 as parcel 006 as written.
And I have a second, thank you. Obviously, we're opening these together because we have the same rationale behind these. We've had some great discussion here tonight, so I would ask if any councilors have any further questions. Hearing no, I'd move each one independently. So first, I would ask for a vote to move 035, please. All those in favor of moving 035? That's unanimous, please. I would call 2019-035 for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Please record that as unanimous. Could I get a motion to vote 036, please, to move 036? I got a first and a second. All those in favor of moving 036, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Please record that as unanimous. And the vote, please, on 2019-036. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Please record that as unanimous as well. And we thank everybody, and congratulations. We're very happy to do business with you.
Thank you very much. Look forward to working with you.
Who's on first? I'm up to 037. Right? Yeah.
I know.
Councilor Hebert, I'm looking for 2019-037, please.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Vice President. Item number 2019-037, acceptance of a federal fiscal year 2018 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant in the amount of $19,600 from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, for the purpose of replacing vests of police officers that are in excess of 5 years and are no longer considered protective, and this may be acted upon.
Thank you very much. If I may ask for chamber to be cleared for a moment. Thank you. And then resolve, we're fortunate enough to have our good chief with us tonight. Please.
Mr. Vice President, members of the council, good evening. Matthew Sonneban, Chief of Police, Town of Barnstable. I'm here to present I'm here to talk to you about 2019-037, the acceptance of a federal fiscal year 2018 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant in the amount of $19,600 from the United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, for the purpose of replacing bulletproof vests of police officers that are in excess of 5 years and are no longer considered protective. Background: the Barnstable Police Department applied for and was awarded the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant from the United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs for fiscal year 18 in the amount of federal fiscal year 18 in the amount of $19,600. This grant funds up to 100% of the cost of bulletproof vests purchased or replaced by the police department in the form of a 50-50 partnership between the Federal Office of Justice Programs and the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety. Replacement vests are recommended every 5 years as the reliability of the vest deteriorates over time and use. State reimbursement is only made upon a 50% payment of the federal program. Analysis: the acceptance of this grant will allow the department to replace bulletproof vests and to maintain safety standards for the placement of these vests on behalf of each police officer at no cost to the town once the 50-50 reimbursements are filed for and received by the federal and state grants. These grants offer significant savings to the town, as each vest costs upwards of $1,000 and is an expenditure that is anticipated every 5 years for each officer. Each officer is on a 5-year replacement cycle tied back to the date of the purchase of their first vest. For this reason, these grants are applied for each year that they are made available for application. Fiscal impact: This is a reimbursement grant. The town must expend the funds upfront and subsequently submit for reimbursement. This has no impact on the police department's operating budget.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions of the chief? Hearing none, hearing no further discussion on this item, I would call for the vote on 2019-037 as drafted. I don't have to move the question if I call for it, but whatever. If you want to go to move the question after I start, we can go to move the question. All those in favor of moving the question, please.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Who would like to vote the motion? 2019-37. Thank you, Councilor Tinsley. All those in favor of 2019-037 as drafted, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Please record that as unanimous. You are our man tonight for a little bit there, Chief. It's
Yes, I
on
am.
you again. I would ask Councilor Cullen, please, to read in 2019-38.
Yes, I'm going to refer this to a public hearing, actually, to 11/1/18, correct? Yes. Yeah. So item 2019-038, supplemental appropriation request for $75,400 for the Barnstable Police Department fiscal year 2019 operating budget for the purpose of funding the hiring of 5 current patrol officer vacancies, as written.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item? Anybody like to move this to a meeting on 11/1/18?
So moved.
Okay, so we're going to first vote to move it. All those in favor of moving the question, 2019-038, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? All those in favor of 2019-38, going to a public hearing on 11/1/18, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Chief, this is the one I needed you for, my apology. Council Neary, want to take a shot at that for me?
Yes, Mr. Vice President. This is new business. It may be acted upon. It's item number 2019-039, the acceptance of fiscal year 2018 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, JAG, in the amount of $55,311 from the U.S. Department of Justice, as written.
Thank you. And a second. Thank you. Chief?
Good evening, Mr. Vice President and members of the council. Once again, Chief Sonnabend here to speak about item number 2019-039, the acceptance of a fiscal year 2018 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant in the amount of $55,311 from the United States Department of Justice. The background, the police department applied for and was awarded a federal fiscal year 2018 Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, local solicitation from the United States Department of Justice in the amount of $55,311. The grant has been deemed to be a disparate certification allocation and to be distributed among 3 towns as outlined below on a prescribed grant formula amount for each town, and the Town of Barnstable Police Department will act as the grant administrator and fiscal agent for all towns. Total allocation for the Town of Barnstable Police Department is $25,940. $17,000 is projected to purchase an electronic signboard to be used for situational traffic concerns, public safety messaging, and as a public communications tool. $8,940 to fund the costs associated with the replacement of obsolete equipment in the department's mobile command unit and emergency operations center, mobile command post. Total allocation for the Town of Falmouth Police Department, $11,312. $10,012 to purchase and replace 2 speed monitoring awareness radar trailers used to assist with speed monitoring and motorist awareness. $1,300 to purchase body beacon rechargeable LED lights for 52 patrol officers and to support officer safety while making traffic stops and other patrol-related stops where the visibility of the officer is important to prevent the officer from being hit by an oncoming motorist. Total allocation for the Town of Yarmouth Police Department, $18,059. $10,912 to fund the costs associated with the startup of a traffic unit to include data collection and traffic-related patrols. Aside from general traffic enforcement, the unit will also focus on impaired driving, traffic hotspots, that generate citizens' concerns and human trafficking detected through routine traffic stops. $7,147 to purchase 2 LiDAR speed detection units and a traffic data collection unit to support the initiatives of the newly formed traffic unit. Analysis. The acceptance of this grant will allow for the aforementioned police departments to take action on the programs as described previously. Fiscal impact. There is no matching funding required for this grant. This is a reimbursement grant as expenses are incurred up to the total dollar amount of the grant. The Town of Barnstable Police Department will serve as the fiscal agent for all towns and will be responsible for all grant reporting, reimbursement of funds, and drawdowns.
Chief, this, as grant administrator, this is a role we've had before, and BPD is comfortable in this role.
That is correct. We had the one for the 2017. It's been an ongoing type of grant.
Thank you. Any other questions of the chief? Hearing none, what's your pleasure? All those in favor of moving the question, I have a first and a second, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let's vote the question, 2019-039. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wow, that's unanimous. Good job. Chief, thank you very much for hanging with us tonight.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Very funny earlier this evening, though, by the way.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
You like the dinosaur story?
I think so.
And Councilor Rapgrissetti, we have appointments, please.
Thank you. This is new business, first reading. This is to refer to a second reading on November 1st, 2018, item 2019-040, appointments to a board, committee, or commission. Resolved that the town council appoints the following individuals to a multiple member board, committee, or commission. Council on Aging, Merrill Blum from Centerville as an alternate member to a term expiring 6/30/2019. Janice LaRiviere from Centerville from an alternate position to a full member position on the Council on Aging to a term expiring 6/30/2019. Historical Commission, Francis Parks, Katuitt as a regular member to a term expiring 6/30/2020. Infrastructure and Energy Committee, Allison Alessi from West Barnstable as a regular member to a term expiring 6/30/2019. John Boyle from Centerville as a regular member to a term expiring 6/30/19. And for the Youth Commission, Alexandra Stempel as a regular student member to a term expiring 6/30/2019 as read.
I have a first and a second. Everybody in favor of moving this to a meeting November, what is it? 1st, thank you. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? I hear none. Please record that. I would take a motion to adjourn if you're so inclined. I have a first and a second. All those in favor, please. Any opposition? Thank you very much, and good night, and thank you, councilors, for being so kind to your vice chairman.